Chapter 5:16. Poplar Fruit had thought about the possibility of being questioned, but he didn't expect it to come so quickly. Poplar Fruit? He's Poplar Fruit? This was the second time he heard the sentence today, but it was far more intense than the first time. This was at the entrance of the hotel where the banquet was held. When Poplar Fruit and the others signed in, a teacher from an unknown university behind Poplar Fruit saw the two big words written by Poplar Fruit and shouted without suppressing his voice. Then one word spread to two to three, and Poplar Fruit's name instantly ignited a heated discussion among the crowd at the entrance of the hotel. Although there weren't many people, only 5 or 6 people in groups of 2s and 3s. Including those who came later, there were no more than 10 people. However, they were whispering to each other and discussing in front of Yanghua. That's the madman. What madman? I think it's just a clickbait. I don't know what the translator is thinking by publishing such a deviant article. They were discussing and looking at Poplar Fruit with malicious eyes. For a moment, the atmosphere at the entrance of the hotel was particularly strange. You're Poplar Fruit? At this time, a short and thin man came out of the crowd and walked in front of Poplar Fruit. He looked up at Poplar Fruit disdainfully and said, "You don't look old. You've only been studying for a few years, yet you dare to talk nonsense on the translator." Poplar Fruit frowned. He felt a little uncomfortable when he heard this, but he was still a newcomer in this field, so it wasn't good for him to go against these seniors. He took a deep breath and asked, "How should I address you, senior?" "Xiamen University, Wang Kaiga," the short and thin man said arrogantly. "Hello, Teacher Wang," Poplar Fruit said lightly. His tone was neither humble nor overbearing. "I don't know why you think I'm talking nonsense. The Translator is a rigorous academic newspaper, not an entertainment tabloid that anyone can talk nonsense on. I published my thoughts on it because I wanted to share my research results with everyone." "Ah," Wang Kaiga sneered and said. "You're young, and you dare to claim that you have research results without studying for a few years. Before you conjecture these unrealistic theories, have you seriously read other people's works? Do you know that your theory doesn't work at all? You're not a fish. How do you know that I haven't studied the theoretical works of my seniors? How do you know that my theory doesn't work if you don't test it? If you think that my theory is wrong, can you give me a few examples?" He felt that Poplar Fruit's thesis was nonsense, but he had to nitpick. Wang Kaiga, who hadn't carefully studied Poplar Fruit's thesis, was at a loss for words. Wang Kaiga said angrily, "I'm a professor at Xiamen University. What's your title? In terms of age and seniority, I can be considered your teacher. Is it your turn to lecture me? If you're his teacher, then what am I?" Chen Zongdai slowly walked out from behind Poplar Fruit. He had just signed in with Huang Xiuyu and walked forward, but after waiting for a long time, he didn't see Poplar Fruit come over. It was only when he heard Wang Kaiga shout that he knew that Poplar Fruit was in trouble. When Wang Kaiga saw Chen Zongdai, he was so shocked that he couldn't speak clearly. Director Chen." Chen Zongdai's reputation in the field of linguistics was very high. Although it wasn't a high-ranking comprehensive university, he and Mr. Yuan Chenghe, the director of the School of Advanced Studies of Guangdong Foreign Studies University, and Mr. Du Wenqing of Xiamen University of Chinese Studies were recognized as the leaders of South China. They were even among the top 10 linguists in the country. Wang Kaiga was only an associate professor. He bragged that he was a professor. When he saw Chen Zongdai, a giant in the academic world, he naturally felt that he was half a level lower. "Director Chen." The surrounding people who were watching the show also exclaimed in low voices. "Yeah, I remember now." According to the editor, Poplar Fruit's thesis was recommended by Director Chen. A person who had read carefully quickly explained to the people next to him. Could Director Chen be Poplar Fruit's mentor? Hee, Teacher Wang seems to have hit an iron plate. There was no lack of people who were gloating. Poplar Fruit is your student?" Wang Kaiga didn't give up and pointed at Poplar Fruit. "He is my student," Chen Zongdai said concisely. "But aren't you from the functional language school? Why are you?" Wang Kaiga didn't continue. His question was very good, and it was what everyone was thinking. "Can't I? I didn't say that I agree with Poplar Fruit's theory." Chen Zongdai shrugged his shoulders and said, But that doesn't stop Yonggua from being my student. The truth is that the more you debate, the clearer it becomes. We allow and hope for different voices so that our linguistics can develop. If he was your student, why didn't you say so earlier? Wang Kaiga felt very aggrieved. He wanted to say, you should have made a clear stand against it. Is there a teacher like you? Your student has already gone against you, and you still allow him to put forward a theory to oppose you? Wang Kaiga's companions shrank back. The representative sent by Shaman University didn't have enough weight. They didn't even have a chance to speak in front of Chen Zongdai. Naturally, they didn't dare to provoke him. I'm not shielding him. Don't misunderstand. Chen Zongdai looked around and chuckled. If anyone has different opinions about poplar fruit, you can raise them. This is also a good thing for poplar fruit. However, I hope that when you raise your opinions, you really find the problem. Then everyone can communicate in a friendly manner. Teacher Wang, what do you say? Chen Zongdai stood up for his disciple. Wang Kaiga didn't dare to say anything else. He laughed dryly and nodded. Yes, Director Chen, you are right. Chen Zongdai didn't argue. He smiled and nodded. Then he patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder, turned around, and walked into the hotel first. Poplar Fruit held Kiki, bowed politely to Wang Kaiga, and said, Professor Wang, I'm also going in. Do you think we should talk at another time? You are my senior. I still have to learn from you. These words were actually to give Wang Kaiga a way out. However, there was still a needle hidden in the silk floss. Poplar Fruit was unceremoniously mocking Wang Kaiga. If he had known that Poplar Fruit was Chen Zongdai's student, Wang Kaiga wouldn't have stood out. Damn it, I thought he was a soft persimmon that could be pinched at will. At this time, Wang Kaiga just wanted to get rid of Poplar Fruit as soon as possible. He laughed dryly and said yes repeatedly. Wang Kaiga squeezed into the crowd as if he was escaping. Poplar Fruit still had a calm expression. He turned around and walked into the hotel, leaving the silent crowd outside. Chapter 517. Generally, a seminar was just a dinner party. There were dozens of tables, and like-minded old pedants who had topics to talk about, or were already familiar with each other would sit together to eat and chat. However, this time, the venue of the seminar was historically moved from a few big coastal cities to an inland city. Chongqing University had ingeniously arranged a banquet that was more like a cocktail party before the start of the conference. This was to show that although Chongqing University was located inland, it still had a strong capital. Let's not talk about the purpose of this cocktail party. After Poplar Fruit and the others entered, they found that there were already many people standing inside. They were all men in suits and leather shoes, and the women were all dressed up. It was as if they were really there. In fact, it was not difficult to understand. As translators, except for the poorer translators, most interpreters were required to wear formal clothes when they were translating or even translating at conferences. Similarly, interpreters were often able to get an admission ticket for the cocktail party after the conference. Therefore, they were not unfamiliar with events like cocktail parties. Those who were able to walk into this venue were all people who had a certain level of attainment in linguistics or translation theory. Most of them were professors. With their abilities, the work of translating was naturally not a problem. Therefore, it could be seen that they were not at a loss when facing the cocktail party like the newcomers. They gathered in twos and threes, holding wine glasses, and chatting while waiting for the cocktail party to begin. Poplar Fruit knew that it was not appropriate to bring Kiki to this kind of occasion, but Chen Zongdai was very domineering. He waved his hand and said that it was fine. Poplar Fruit naturally did not want to leave Kiki alone at home, so he brought her along. However, in order to not cause public outrage, he kept a low profile and led Kiki around the edge of the venue. Papa, I want to see. I want to see. Kiki was too short. She stood on tiptoe on the ground and could not see the buffet food on the table. However, when she heard her father's praise, she could not hold back her emotions and pulled Poplar Fruit's trousers and shouted, "She'll lower your voice." With the Poplar Fruit by his mouth, he raised his index finger. Seeing this, Kiki shrank her neck and pretended to look around. Poplar Fruit picked up Kiki and watched the food with her daughter. Since the banquet had not officially started, they could only watch but not eat. This is a river clam. We have it everywhere, but I have never seen such a big one. It is almost as big as an oyster. Poplar fruit pointed at the food and taught Kiki how to identify it. Everyone else was looking for acquaintances to chat with, but poplar fruit didn't have many acquaintances. He hid with his daughter in a corner to entertain himself. Papa, what's that red thing? Kiki glanced at the seasoning plate next to the clam plate and asked curiously. It's chili noodles. Poplar fruit laughed. Kiki doesn't like spicy food, right? Kiki pouted and shook her head. She said with a disgusted look. Papa, let's throw it away, okay? Kiki doesn't like spicy food. It's so uncomfortable. Poplar fruit patted his daughter's back with a smile and comforted her. Don't be afraid. Dad won't let you eat spicy food. Don't worry. Throw it away. You can't throw it away. Others want to eat it. Poplar fruit. Poplar fruit. Why are you hiding here? At this time, the Dean Huang Shuiyu hurried over and said with a little blame, Come with me. The Dean is looking for you. Looking for me? Poplar fruit held his daughter and followed Huang Shuiyu. He asked curiously, Isn't the teacher chatting with a friend? Just now, Dean Yuan from UI asked about you. The dean wanted to introduce you to him, but you disappeared. Hurry up. Huang Shuiyu said hurriedly. Dean Yuan? From Guangdong? Poplar fruit didn't remember when he heard this, but soon he connected it with a person in his memory. Dean Yuan Qinghe of Guangdong Foreign Studies University. Last year, when Yang Guo was suddenly exposed for translating sect leader Qiao's autobiography, she was caught in a storm of public opinion. At that time, it was Dean Yuan Qinghe's evaluation in the newspaper that gradually made Yang Guo accepted by the public. At that time, Poplar Fruit was still a nobody, and Chen Zongdai didn't know who Poplar Fruit was. Of course, Dean Yuan didn't know him either. It was Yao Dehua who spent a lot of effort and favors to invite this great god. Dean Yuan also gave a fair evaluation based on some of the translations that Poplar Fruit had already done. At that time, he undoubtedly helped Poplar Fruit a lot. But even so, Poplar Fruit's social and academic status at that time couldn't be compared to Dean Yuan. So Poplar Fruit wanted to visit and thank him, but he was rejected. He could only remember this kindness in his heart. Poplar Fruit thought of this and couldn't help but quicken his pace. Teacher. When Poplar Fruit walked to Chen Zongdai's side, he saw Dean Yuan Qinghe, a white-haired old man. Compared to Chen Zongdai's hale and hearty spirit, he was a bit old. Of course, Dean Yuan Qinghe's age was here. He was in his 70s this year, and was rehired after retirement. Chen Zongdai was even younger than Dean Yuan. So, even though Chen Zongdai and Dean Yuan Qinghe's status in the academic world were comparable, Chen Zongdai still maintained a humble attitude when facing Dean Yuan Qinghe. Poplar Fruit, let me introduce you. Chen Zongdai pulled Poplar Fruit and said, This is Dean Yuan Qinghe. I don't need to say anything else. You must have heard of his name, right? How could I not have heard of him? Dean Yuan is a treasure in Guangdong province. Poplar Fruit put Kiki on the ground and let her stand on her own. Then, he humbly bowed to Dean Yuan Qinghe and said with some excitement, Dean Yuan, I often heard of your name when I was studying. Last year, I also needed your help. Today, I finally have the opportunity to meet you. Poplar Fruit wants to add a word of thanks to you. Compared to Huang Shuiyu, who was confused, Chen Zongdai knew the story between Poplar Fruit and Dean Yuan Qinghe. He laughed and said, Right, I forgot. Sigh, I should have brought Poplar Fruit to thank you a long time ago. Yuan Qinghe smiled lightly. His whole body exuded the indifference of a master. He waved his hand and said, No need. I was also entrusted by someone to say a few words of justice. Your words of justice saved me a lot of scolding. Poplar Fruit straightened up and smiled calmly. It's only right to thank you. Poplar Fruit's voice was very steady, unlike the other students who stuttered when they saw these famous old professors. Yuan Qinghe took a deep look at Poplar Fruit, then smiled meaningfully at Chen Zongdai. Little Chen, you're lucky to have picked a good seedling. Yuan Qinghe did not say that Chen Zongdai had a good eye. Instead, he used the word luck. The meaning behind his words was obvious. It was nothing more than Chen Zongdai's luck. If Poplar Fruit had studied in another university, how could this guy, who was usually very lazy in recruiting students, have gotten in? He. Chen Zongdai laughed proudly. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 518. It's a pity that I'm old and my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. Yuan Qinghe said regretfully. Yuan Qinghe said with regret. If I had put in more effort last year and saw Yangguo's great potential, humph, how could I have left her to you? Poplar Fruit quickly said modestly. Dean Yuan, you think too highly of me. I'm not as good as you say. Old Yuan. Don't say that I don't respect the old. Chen Zongdai had a bad temper. He said unhappily. I think that if Xiaochen follows you, it would be a waste of talent. What can you teach him? Isn't it just Newmark's 3 axes? Surprisingly, Yuan Qinghe did not refute. He looked at Chen Zongdai, nodded slightly and said, Xiaochen, you're right. I'm a little stubborn. I've been a teacher for so many years, but I still don't know how to teach according to the student's ability. A talent like Xiaoyang should be taught like you. Yuan Qinghe was already an authority in the country, but he could still admit his shortcomings. Chen Zongdai was speechless, and Poplar Fruit's admiration doubled. Yuan Qinghe and Chen Zongdai chatted for a while, talking about their recent schedules. Poplar Fruit couldn't get a word in edgewise. Kiki was impatient. She didn't dare to run away alone, so she hid behind her father and tore at her father's trousers. By the way, a few days ago, I saw an article by Xiaoyang on Translation Expert. Yuan Qinghe finally remembered Poplar Fruit. He turned his head and said to Poplar Fruit kindly, It's a new theory, right? Yes. Poplar Fruit quickly said, It's a relatively new theory in the country. It's mainly based on the method of mutual translation between German and Swedish. The idea is not mature. Yes, he is indeed not mature enough. Yuan Qinghe nodded slightly and said, I have thought about the feasibility of your theory, but the main problem is not that we are the translators, but the original author. If it is a powerful author, he will never let you tamper with his work. Do you understand? Yes, I have considered this problem. Poplar Fruit smiled. Therefore, this theory is rather extreme. Not only does it require a high level of bilingualism, but it also requires the permission of the author. However, I hope that this theory can be used in the translation of ancient Chinese books and contribute to the spread of Chinese culture. It's good for young people to be driven. Yuan Qinghe smiled non-committally and said, Thinking in a new direction is necessary for learning. That's good. Keep working hard. Even if you fail, it's okay. Take it slow. You still have a long way to go. Yuan Qinghe's words were completely from the perspective of an elder. He wanted to encourage Poplar Fruit. However, his attitude was also very obvious. Yuan Qinghe was not optimistic about Poplar Fruit's theory. It was okay if he failed. In his heart, he felt that Poplar Fruit was bound to fail. Poplar Fruit heard it. He was still a little unconvinced, but he still humbly accepted Yuan Qinghe's opinion. Speaking of which, Xiaochen, you are the most cunning one here. Yuan Qinghe smiled and said to Chen Zongdai, Xiaoyang has only learned for a short time, and you are already pushing him out in such a hurry. Others think that you are pulling the seedlings to help them grow, but I think that you have a lot of ideas. What do you mean by cunning? Chen Zongdai said angrily and discontentedly. Haha. Yuan Qinghe was very satisfied with this effect. He turned to Poplar Fruit and said with a smile, Xiaoyang, don't misunderstand. I was just joking with your teacher. There's no misunderstanding. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Teacher wants me to gain more experience for my own good. Yuan Qinghe nodded and smiled. It's good that you can think like this. Young people should not be afraid of hardships, setbacks, and criticism. Wrestling is also a part of growth. Yuan Qinghe chatted with Chen Zongdai for a while, and then separated. He had a lot of acquaintances. It was rare for him to meet, so he had to walk around more. It was impossible for him to stand with the people from Guangdong province for the whole night. After Chen Zongdai watched Yuan Qinghe leave, he suddenly said to Poplar Fruit, You can listen to old Yuan's words. Poplar Fruit was stunned for a moment. He looked at Chen Zongdai in confusion. Chen Zongdai smiled proudly and said, Old Yuan's attainments in semiotics are very deep. I, your teacher, am ashamed of my inferiority. However, he's not that good. It's just that vision that limits his development. Poplar Fruit scratched his head. He felt that it wasn't good to gossip about his seniors behind their backs, so he could only listen in silence. Old Yuan didn't think highly of your theory. He thought that I was trying to build momentum for you. Chen Zongdai said. It's okay. You just have to be yourself. Don't feel hopeless because of what he said. Poplar Fruit clenched his fist and said seriously to Chen Zongdai, I know, teacher. I've always been firm. Not only was he firm, but Poplar Fruit had already suppressed his anger during his conversation with Yuan Qinghe. He secretly made up his mind to perform well tomorrow, and let those who didn't approve of him know that he wasn't bragging. Don't walk around. It's about time. The banquet is about to start, Chen Zongdai said with a smile. Just as he finished speaking, Poplar Fruit heard a commotion at the door. He turned around and saw a group of people walking in. Professor Luo Dinqi. Poplar Fruit called out in his heart. Wasn't that right? In the crowd, Professor Luo Lin and Dean Qishan of Beijing Foreign Studies University were mixed in. They were smiling and were constantly greeting people they knew. Poplar Fruit even saw Vice Principal Ma, Dean Xian and Dean Luo from Chongqing University. However, Vice Principal Ma wasn't standing in the middle of the crowd. Dean Xian and Dean Luo were at the back. In the end, the world still belongs to Beijing and Shanghai. Chen Zongdai suddenly sighed softly and said. Seeing Poplar Fruit's confusion, Chen Zongdai pointed at the crowd and introduced them to Poplar Fruit. Most of these people are from the few universities in Beijing and the 2 universities in Shanghai. Old Ma has to accompany them. I don't know the one in the middle. I don't know which leader of Chongqing he is. If they don't come, there's no need for this banquet to continue. Don't you understand? Poplar Fruit nodded thoughtfully. Chen Zongdai's words had already resonated with him a long time ago. Back then, during the Xinda Translation Company's meeting, even though the parent company was in Guangzhou, the representatives from the Beijing and Shanghai branch companies were extremely arrogant and domineering. The students from Guangdong Province's Higashiyama University and Guangdong Foreign Studies University were still competitive in Guangdong Province, and even in South China. However, once they were out of South China, no one would recognize them as a brand. This was because the translation industry's teaching resources were still concentrated in Central and North China. Chapter 519. The leader's speech always made people sleepy. At the banquet before the seminar, the leader of Chong City's education department actually came. Although he had been emphasizing that he wouldn't talk nonsense, he still spoke for more than half an hour in the end. Chen Zongdai saw Poplar Fruit's impatient look. He smiled and waved his hand to let Poplar Fruit move freely. Poplar Fruit then pulled Kiki to hide in a corner where no one would notice, as if he had been granted amnesty. Kiki wants to go back. Kiki pouted her little mouth, raised her little head and muttered to her father. Wait a little longer. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Daddy will be able to take you to eat delicious food soon. Kiki was getting smarter and smarter. She wasn't fooled so easily. But Papa, we can go eat by ourselves. Papa has money, we can buy a lot of delicious food. How do you know that Daddy has money? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Kiki knows. Kiki nodded seriously and said, Papa has a wallet. But Daddy doesn't have much money in his wallet? Poplar Fruit smiled and teased her. We don't have money to eat out today. Isn't it good to eat for free? Kiki coquettishly pulled on her father's clothes and let out a long trembling sound. She jumped and stomped her feet, pouted her little mouth and said unhappily, Papa can use a card. You even know about cards? Poplar Fruit smiled in surprise. Then tell me, how many cards does Daddy have? Kiki couldn't answer this time. Kiki began to step on her father's feet with her little shoes, then jumped down and kept making a fuss. Kiki wants to go back. Okay, stop making a fuss. This is Daddy's job. If you make a fuss again, Daddy won't play with you anymore. Poplar Fruit gently threatened the little girl. Kiki immediately became a lot more well-behaved, but she was still unconvinced. She pouted so much that a soy sauce bottle could be hung from her lips. Poplar Fruit smiled and pinched Kiki's little mouth. You're not allowed to pout. You have to think about Zhu Beiji. He became so ugly because he always pouted when he was young. Does Kiki want to be pretty or ugly? At the mention of beauty, Kiki immediately pursed her lips. She coquettishly squeezed into her father's embrace and said softly, Kiki doesn't want it. Kiki is very beautiful. Taking some time, Poplar Fruit called Zhu Jingjing to check on the Xiong siblings. There was no need to worry about Xiong Xiaolin. She was still reading in her room. Xiong Xiaofeng, on the other hand, was mesmerized by the television. He sat there and watched without raising his head. Turning around, Poplar Fruit saw that the leader on the stage had finished speaking. However, another leader of the Translation Association continued to nag. After listening for 2 minutes, Poplar Fruit began to stare blankly again. Forget it. Poplar Fruit saw that no one was paying attention to him. He carried his daughter out of the side door and stayed in the corridor. The corridor was connected to the hotel's small garden. At this time, the small garden was dimly lit and quiet. There was no one there. It was perfect for Poplar Fruit to make a call. Poplar Fruit had been thinking about calling Feng Beibei for a long time. The phone rang a few times and Feng Beibei picked it up. It was so convenient in the dormitory. It was not like when she was at home, where she had to hide from her mother. Are you alone in the dormitory? Poplar Fruit asked with concern. Yes. Feng Beibei answered with a sigh and a moan. Are you reading? Yes. Feng Beibei said gloomily. I do exercises every day. Even when I close my eyes, I can see the formulas. Why don't you give up on the competition? Poplar Fruit laughed. Come to Chung City. Let's travel together. I don't want to. Feng Beibei's attitude changed 180 degrees. She said angrily, how can you say that? You want me to give up before I even start? Do you know how difficult it is to participate in the competition? Many seniors don't even have a chance to participate in the competition in their 3rd and 4th year. Okay, if it wasn't for the fact that I have to attend the seminar, I would have stayed in Yangqing to study with you. Yanghua smiled. I feel a little embarrassed playing outside by myself. Uft. Uncle, what's there to be embarrassed about? Feng Beibei shouted. Don't tell me you want to bring everyone with you when you go on a trip. You're different from others. Poplar Fruit said something very mushy. Feng Beibei took 2 deep breaths and said, Are you trying to make me happy again? How is this making you happy? It's from the bottom of my heart. Poplar Fruit laughed. Uncle, what are you doing now? Feng Beibei changed the topic. Preparing for tomorrow's meeting? There's nothing to prepare for tomorrow. Everything I want to say is already in my head. Poplar Fruit said proudly. There's a cocktail party today. I came with the professor. Cocktail party? Then aren't you going to make a profit? There are so many beauties. Feng Beibei said in a strange tone. There aren't any beauties. Poplar Fruit cried out. They're all professors, and they're not young anymore. Even if they were beauties, they wouldn't be able to tell. You're not happy without beauties, are you? Feng Beibei said in a light tone with a smile. Uncle, don't always think about looking at beauties. There's still a lot of beautiful things in this world. AI. Why can't I say anything right? You're the one who brought up the topic of beauties. Poplar Fruit said helplessly. He, I won't tease you anymore. After arguing with Poplar Fruit for a while, Feng Beibei came out from the dizzy state of solving the problem. You have a meeting tomorrow. What about Big Sister Yi? Do you have time to arrange it? Feng Beibei asked. Don't you know who I am? Poplar Fruit proudly said. I've already arranged it. Moreover, Aunt Yi had an operation this afternoon. The effect was very good. She'll stay for a few days. Once the wound is healed, she can be discharged. So fast? Feng Beibei frowned and asked. Isn't it too rushed? You've been in the car all night. Wouldn't it be dangerous to have an operation? It shouldn't be a problem, right? Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, Big Sister Yi has actually been resting. Moreover, the operation was arranged by the hospital. They'll check it. Chatting with Feng Beibei, Poplar Fruit felt very relaxed. The two of them were as comfortable as chatting. He didn't say that he had to be careful because of the person he liked. He was afraid that he would say something that would cause the other party to misunderstand. Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei's relationship was very subtle. The two of them weren't boyfriend and girlfriend yet, but long before Poplar Fruit's confession, the two of them chatted very casually. They didn't seem like friends who had just been friends for more than half a year. Instead, they seemed like childhood sweethearts who grew up together. Especially at that time in the small room in the teacher's apartment, that warmth seemed to be love. Perhaps, it had already surpassed love. Sometimes when Poplar Fruit calmed down and thought about his progress with Fong Beibei, he would feel this way. Chapter 520. When they went back, the banquet had already begun, and the leaders who had finished their speeches were nowhere to be found. But this was not important. Poplar Fruit breathed a sigh of relief, took a plate, and began to find food for him and Kiki. What does Kiki want to eat? Poplar Fruit looked left and right, and found that it was better to ask Kiki. Papa cake. Kiki had already seen the exquisite small cakes on the buffet table. Usually, Poplar Fruit rarely bought cakes for her, because children could not eat too many sweets, but Kiki had a special fondness for cakes. Okay. Poplar Fruit was happy today, so he did not refuse. He picked up 2 small cakes on the plate. There's more. Kiki reluctantly looked at the big tray with the small cakes and said, "You can only eat 2 at most," Poplar Fruit said. "We have to leave some for others." After picking up some more food, Poplar Fruit carried the plate to the table near the corner. Kiki happily followed behind, and her small steps were very neat, for fear that she could not keep up with her father. "I don't want wine, do you have juice? Give me a glass of juice." Poplar Fruit smiled and declined the waiter with the tray, but the service of the hotel was very good. And soon someone brought a glass of fresh orange juice to Poplar Fruit. In the banquet, other people drank red wine, but Poplar Fruit drank juice. He could be regarded as a weirdo. However, Poplar Fruit was not a person who liked to follow the rules. He had already quit drinking. Even if it was a social event, Poplar Fruit would not drink. Poplar Fruit ruthlessly cut the good-looking small cakes with a silver fork, and then gave small pieces to Kiki to eat. From time to time, he would coax Kiki to drink some juice, which would help with digestion. The chair on his left was pulled out. Poplar Fruit turned his head and saw a familiar person sitting down beside him. Other than Professor Roland, who else could it be? Professor Luo. Poplar Fruit was shocked. He quickly stood up and greeted him. Sit. Luolin smiled and waved his hand. "I saw your back from afar. Now that I've come to take a look, it's really you." Poplar Fruit scratched his head with a smile and said, "Actually, I also saw you at the beginning, but you were talking to someone so I couldn't find a chance to say hello to you." "It's all right. I know it's not convenient for you either." Luolin smiled. "You're always inseparable from your daughter. You even brought her along to Great City. That can't be helped." Poplar Fruit smiled. "You should hurry up and find a wife." Luolin shook his head and said, "It's not just about children. You should also consider marriage." Poplar Fruit smiled embarrassedly. "I think Xiao Zheng is good." Luolin suddenly pulled Zheng Yujie out of the blue. "You two are a perfect match. I think you two will have a chance in the capital." "We're just friends," Poplar Fruit explained awkwardly. "You'll have feelings after being friends for a long time," Luolin said earnestly. "Tell me, how is Xiaozheng not good enough for you? She's pretty and has a successful career. She's the deputy editor of the publishing house, and will be helpful to your career. Most importantly, she's interested in you and doesn't mind that you have a child." Yes, how was Zheng Yujie not good enough for Poplar Fruit? Poplar Fruit couldn't answer Luolin's question. He mumbled for a long time, but couldn't find a reason to refute. "In my opinion, you should come to Beijing to study. How can the two of you live so far apart? In Beijing you'll be able to meet and interact with each other." Luolin laughed. Poplar Fruit nearly fainted from Luolin's words. However, he was still relatively firm when it came to relationships. When Luolin revealed his foxtail, Poplar Fruit blinked his eyes and immediately discovered it. "Professor Luo." Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he continued. "You're making fun of me again." "Am I?" Luolin rolled his eyes and pretended to be innocent as he continued. "Hey, why is it so hard to be a matchmaker in this world? My good intentions are misunderstood. Did I misunderstand? Poplar Fruit retorted. Aren't you trying to trick me into studying in Beijing? How can you call it a trick? After being exposed, Luo Lin wasn't embarrassed as he laughed. How is studying in Beijing not better than studying in Yangqing? Furthermore, you'll be able to see little Zheng often. I'm doing this for your own good. Shaking his head, Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he replied. Professor Luo, you don't have to worry about me and Wuxia. It's not what you think it is. Chen Zongdai was currently chatting with a professor from Higashiyama University. Inadvertently, he glanced at Poplar Fruit and saw Luo Lin sneaking over to Poplar Fruit's side. Chen Zongdai inwardly cursed, that old fox. After apologizing to his friend, Chen Zongdai immediately walked over to Poplar Fruit. Right now, he was like a dragon sitting on a mountain of gold, constantly on guard against others. When Luo Lin saw him walking over, he immediately shut his mouth. Good job, old Luo. Looks like you haven't forgotten your talent in poaching after all these years. Chen Zongdai said half-jokingly. How can this be considered poaching? Luo Lin generously retorted. I was the one who discovered Little Yang in the first place, okay? That won't do. Poplar Fruit became my disciple, so he's one of my people. Chen Zongdai pushed Poplar Fruit and said. Sit over there, sit over there. He forcefully squeezed between Luo Lin and Poplar Fruit, and sat down on Poplar Fruit's seat. Poplar Fruit had no choice but to pick up Kiki and sit down on the other side. Kiki looked at the bearded grandfather and then at the beardless grandfather. She felt strange in her heart. The two grandpas are the same age, so how come one has a beard and the other doesn't? Could it be that some other kid pulled out the beard of the other grandpa? Okay. No one is poaching your student. Luo Lin lied without blinking. I'm discussing a rigorous academic problem with Little Yang. Really? Chen Zongdai asked with a face of disbelief. Really? Luo Lin nodded with a smile and said, after reading Little Yang's thesis, I felt that we could explore and collaborate on the theory of translation, so I wanted to talk to him about it. Chen Zongdai was still a little skeptical. He cautiously said, if you want to collaborate, you can look for me. If you want to discuss theories with Poplar Fruit, you don't have to rush. For tomorrow's seminar, Poplar Fruit has a keynote presentation at 2 p.m. After 2 days, there will be plenty of time to discuss it. Luo Lin shrugged and smiled indifferently. Okay, I'm here this time to listen to Little Yang's brilliant ideas. Old Chen, Little Yang, when we discuss collaboration, don't forget that Beijing International Studies University is very sincere. After chatting for a while, he got up and left, leaving behind a confused Poplar Fruit and Chen Zongdai. Are we really going to collaborate? Poplar Fruit asked the teacher. What are we collaborating on? You're asking me, but who am I supposed to ask? Chen Zongdai said with a grin. Chapter 521. If the cocktail party was just a warm-up, then the seminar was the real deal. The next night, shortly after returning to the hostel, Chen Zongdai received the complete schedule of the meeting. He only knew about the schedule of his school. After Chen Zongdai saw the schedule of the conference, he cursed in his room and said, Are the organizers stupid? How could they do this? Kiki was already asleep, so Poplar Fruit came to his teacher's room to discuss with him. Poplar Fruit took the schedule from his teacher and looked at it. He didn't think there was anything wrong with it. Let me see. Huang Shuiyu took the paper and looked at it. His face sank as he said, What are they thinking? Why did they arrange for Professor Fei from Sorcery Capital to be at the same time as Xiaoyang? In the past few years, the seminar was no longer a group of people listening to the leaders speak. Instead, they learned from other countries and used a theme report and free discussion mode. Naturally, a dozen theme reports from scholars were arranged for the first 2 days. Then 2 days were set aside for the scholars to freely group together and discuss the topics they were interested in. At first, Chen Zongdai was a little satisfied when he heard that Poplar Fruit's theme report was scheduled for 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the first day. 2 o'clock in the afternoon was not a good time. It was still afternoon nap time. People were sleepy and wouldn't even choose to come at this time. However, for a young person like Poplar Fruit, it was a good opportunity. because big names like Chen Zongdai were usually scheduled for the second day, or the first day's prime time. The organizers usually didn't arrange any important theme reports at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the first day. With the popularity of Poplar Fruit's report, Chen Zongdai believed that it would attract a lot of people. Chen Zongdai didn't tell Poplar Fruit this, mainly because he didn't want to add too much pressure to Poplar Fruit and affect his performance. However, Chen Zongdai didn't expect that the organizers would arrange for Professor Fei from the Shanghai Foreign Languages University to compete with Poplar Fruit at the same time as Poplar Fruit. Professor Fei focused on academic research and didn't have any important official titles in the university. However, he was a symbol of the Shanghai Foreign Languages University. In the 1990s, his introduction to linguistics caused a sensation in the country. Even today, many universities listed this book as a compulsory theory course for English majors. In the past 2 years, Professor Fei didn't publish any groundbreaking papers, but no one questioned his academic status. Even scholars like Chen Zongdai didn't dare to be careless when they met with Professor Fei. "Shady, it must be shady," Chen Zongdai said. "The Northerners are up to no good." The Northerners that Chen Zongdai was talking about were obviously not the universities in the southern cities. He was talking about the universities in Shanghai and Beijing. The universities in South China didn't have much say in the Translation Association. They were the only ones who could influence the organizers. Seeing the arrangement, the 2 reports from Higashiyama University were more or less excluded. Chen Zongdai was fine. As the leader of the functional language school, he was strong and wasn't afraid of anyone. However, although Poplar Fruit was his disciple, he was still a newcomer. How many listeners would he have if he encountered someone like Professor Fei? After asking for the reason, Poplar Fruit was stunned for a while. He smiled and said, "Teacher, don't worry about me. As long as there is one more listener, I will work hard on this report. I won't waste this precious opportunity." It's good that you can think this way. Don't take the pressure to heart. Maybe you can do better. Chen Zongdai appreciated Poplar Fruit's attitude, but he still felt a little uncomfortable. It's just that those people are too much. Their intention to suppress people is too obvious. 10 years ago, when I was young and energetic, I would have rolled up my sleeves and argued with them. "Teacher, it's okay." Poplar Fruit smiled and comforted Chen Zongdai. "They look down on us, so we have to perform better. We have to satisfy the audience and make those who didn't come regret it." Poplar Fruit would be lying to himself if he said that he didn't care at all. He had his own pride. He didn't think that he was worse than anyone else in the world. Even if he couldn't do it now, he would be able to do it in the future. He could accept other people's unfair arrangements, but he would never accept other people's contempt for him. Just like when he heard Dean Yuan Qinghe's words at the cocktail party, Poplar Fruit felt that other universities didn't value him. "Do you all think that I'm someone you can easily bully? Do you all think that Professor Fei can easily beat me?" Poplar Fruit was not convinced. While he comforted his teacher, he secretly made up his mind to do better. He had to show them that he wasn't worse than anyone else. He would make those who didn't come regret it. These words weren't just for show. Under the dark curtain, there was an undercurrent. Sometimes, no one knew what kind of accidents and variables would appear in a carefully planned arrangement. After receiving the detailed schedule of the conference, many people who were interested in Poplar Fruit's name began to hesitate. On one side, it was the young Poplar Fruit that everyone wanted to talk about. On the other side, it was the old professor that no one knew if he would be able to taste something new. The choice was personal. Even the people behind the scenes couldn't guarantee that reality would follow the path they had planned. Moreover, Poplar Fruit was only one of the aspects that they didn't pay much attention to. Naturally, they wouldn't continue to put in the effort to arrange it. At the headquarters of Beijing International Studies University, Luo Lin, Xiu Shan, and a few other professors were discussing which schools to listen to. They were mainly talking about the big names that would appear on the second day. Interesting. Let Xiao Yang and old Phil speak at the same time. Luo Lin suddenly laughed softly. "Xiao Yang? You're talking about Poplar Fruit?" Xiu Shan was quite interested in this name. He suspiciously glanced at the conference schedule and didn't see it on the second day's schedule. He only found Poplar Fruit's name on the first day's schedule. Qiushan also smiled meaningfully. With his position, it was naturally impossible for him to not see the meaning behind this arrangement. I don't care who you listen to. I'm going to listen to Xiao Yang's keynote report. Luo Lin shrugged and laughed. Old Luo thinks so highly of this young man? A similarly aged professor opened his mouth and said, I'm quite interested. I'll go listen too. I'll go too. Qiushan smiled. Giving face to Higashiyama University and Chinzondai is a good choice. If you all go, we'll also join in the fun. The remaining two professors also laughed. The things that old Phil talks about can be guessed with your eyes closed. Why don't we see what this young man has to say? Chapter 522. As Chinzondai said, the first day of the report was boring. Poplar Fruit asked Xiong Xiaolin to take care of Kiki. He went to listen to 4 reports in the morning, and found that 2 of them were boring. Poplar Fruit listened to half of the 4 reports and left secretly to listen to other reports. Only one of the professors was from a famous university, but all 4 of them were average. Poplar Fruit had read their theses in the past 2 years. He found that the content of their reports was no different from their theses. Basically, they followed the theories and examples of their theses. There was even one person who simply read the thesis out loud, which made people feel sleepy just by listening to it. However, it was not without results. After listening to other people's failures, Poplar Fruit started to pay attention. During lunch break, Poplar Fruit quickly sorted out his draft and changed all the examples in his thesis. Only Poplar Fruit could make such a big change in such a short time. He had no choice. His brain was a huge database. As long as he wanted, he could find many similar examples from a large number of translation cases and books that he had read before. And there were no duplicates. In the morning, there were 4 reports at the same time. At 2 p.m., there were only 2 reports from Poplar Fruit and Professor Fei. The organizer arranged for Poplar Fruit to be in the small conference room on the 2nd floor of the Student Activity Center. Professor Fei was arranged to be in the middle conference room on the 3rd floor. Poplar Fruit went to the middle conference room in the morning to listen to the reports. The scale and equipment were much better than the one on the 2nd floor. However, Poplar Fruit did not mind. He went to the 2nd floor early to prepare. He adjusted the sound system with the student volunteers. Yang Guo was only a few years older than the students at Chongqing University. His skin and appearance looked especially young. If not for the black suit he was wearing, others would have mistaken him for a student volunteer. At this time, no audience had arrived yet. Yang Guo and the student volunteers from University of Great Metropolis chatted as they busied themselves. Poplar Fruit had done similar work in university. He was very familiar with the sound system. Coupled with his handsome appearance and gentle tone, he quickly got along well with the student volunteers. I thought those teachers were very rigid. I didn't expect Senior Yang to be so approachable. A boy whispered to the girl next to him. Yeah, the one in the morning was hard to please. If only everyone was as handsome and approachable as Senior Yang. The girl next to him looked at Poplar Fruit with sparkling eyes. Poplar Fruit was not the kind of handsome man who looked stunning at first glance. However, he was definitely comfortable to look at. The more you looked at him, the more you liked him. His tall and thin figure was even more charming in his black slim-fit suit. Although Poplar Fruit looked about the same age as them, the faint aura he exuded was enough to pull apart the gap between him and the other young boys. After the adjustment, Poplar Fruit stood on the side of the podium near the door and started to wait and welcome the audience. Compared to those cold professors, Poplar Fruit's humble attitude made many people feel comfortable. Originally, many people just walked to the door to take a look and then left. However, Poplar Fruit's greetings made more than half of the people feel embarrassed to leave. Therefore, people started to enter Poplar Fruit's small conference hall one after another. However, there were still not many people. Poplar Fruit's qualifications were there. Most of the attendees naturally chose Professor Fei between Poplar Fruit and Professor Fei. According to the dean of the faculty, Huang Shuiyu, who had secretly gone to inquire about the news, almost half of the people in the conference hall upstairs were already seated. The conference hall could hold 200 people. Almost half of it was 100 people. The small conference hall was similar to a classroom and could hold 100 people. However, Poplar Fruit's conference hall only had a dozen people. The difference was too obvious. Don't mind it too much. Just be yourself. Old Huang, don't go anymore. Chen Zongdai came to oversee Poplar Fruit and said in a low voice to Poplar Fruit. Another dozen people came one after another, but it was still not many. Looking at the size of the audience in this small conference hall, it was not even comparable to a small class in school. Poplar Fruit's face was as calm as water, but he was not convinced. Poplar Fruit, I'm here to support you. Suddenly, Luo Lin's hearty laughter came from the door. Professor Luo. Poplar Fruit hurriedly collected his thoughts and turned to look. Dinchi, why are you all here? Haha, are we not welcome? Luo Lin joked. No, we are honored by your presence. Poplar Fruit is more than happy to come. Please come in. Poplar Fruit smiled and welcomed them. These teachers are? Poplar Fruit asked curiously. These are the teachers of our school. Let me introduce you. Luo Lin smiled and said, this is the director of the Foreign Language Teaching Center, Professor Guiqi. This is our school's Professor Xie Tao. And this is Professor Yu Yongxiang from the School of Advanced Study. Poplar Fruit respectfully shook hands with them one by one. Because of Luo Lin's relationship, the three professors of Beijing Foreign Studies University were all amiable to Poplar Fruit. Of course, even without Luo Lin, with Chen Zongdai standing behind Poplar Fruit, they would not make things too difficult for Poplar Fruit. Chen Zongdai was more familiar with the people of Beijing Foreign Studies University. After Poplar Fruit greeted them, he invited them to take a seat and chatted with them. Chen Zongdai was secretly surprised. He did not think that his quiet disciple would have such power. He was able to gather the 5 representatives of Beijing Foreign Studies University at his report. The only ones that could compete with Beijing Foreign Studies University were Shanghai Foreign Studies University and a few top comprehensive universities like Beijing University and Shuemu University. The arrival of Luo Lin and the others gave Poplar Fruit a lot of bargaining chips. Some of the participants who looked over were shocked when they saw the group of people from Beijing Foreign Studies University. They hesitated for a while before walking in. They were mainly curious. They wanted to know how powerful Poplar Fruit was to be able to attract the attention of the 5 gods. Just like this, the audience for Poplar Fruit's report gradually increased. Even though it was about to start, the small conference hall was still not full. However, more than half of the seats were filled. This was much more than the previous 20 people. Poplar Fruit looked at the time on his phone and took a deep breath. He tidied up his clothes and walked on stage with a smile on his face. Poplar Fruit looked at the audience that was older and more experienced than him. His eyes were firm. He was ready to begin. Looking for votes, looking for recommendations. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 523. Poplar Fruit walked up to the podium. As the teacher, Chen Zongdai was still a bit reserved, but Luo Lin was not so reserved. He took the lead and clapped. Under his lead, everyone started to clap. The atmosphere slowly became lively. Poplar Fruit nodded at him gratefully. However, Poplar Fruit was more eager to receive heartfelt applause from the audience than this kind of encouragement. Thank you, thank you. Poplar Fruit waited for the applause to stop before he smiled and thanked Luo Lin. His opening speech was very short. It was only a few sentences. He introduced himself, the school, and the name of his topic. That was it. Luo Lin secretly cursed. You're still too young. That's not how you handle a speech. You should interact with the audience or use some foreshadowing to arouse the audience's enthusiasm. However, did Poplar Fruit really not understand? In order to prepare for this speech, Poplar Fruit had read a lot of speech scripts and made ample preparations. He naturally understood the importance of the opening speech, but he had to make concessions for his content. According to the rules of the conference, a keynote speech only had an hour and a half. If he could not finish speaking, he would have to give up his seat to the next speaker. Unless you were a famous master like Luo Lin, Qiu Shan, Chen Zongdai, or Yuan Qinghe, then you would have the confidence to occupy the podium. Unfortunately, Poplar Fruit was not any of them. Poplar Fruit prepared a lot of content for a new theory. Not only did he prepare the content in his thesis, but he also prepared a lot of content that did not appear in his thesis due to the length. An hour and a half, Poplar Fruit felt like he was running out of time. Therefore, instead of starting the speech with nonsense, it was better to change the strategy. Let's win with content, let's win with theory. Currently, the guiding principle of translation theory is nothing more than changing the original language and expressing it the same way. Whatever the original says, the translation says. Whatever the original says, the translation says. Poplar Fruit paused and smiled. This is unanimously recognized by translators. Whether it is the faithfulness, in Mr. Yen Fu's standard of faithfulness, expressiveness, and elegance, Mr. Lu Sun's standard of faithfulness, elegance, or Mr. Fu Lei's standard of faithfulness, all require the translator to be faithful to the original content. I believe that all the teachers present here have encountered the same difficulties in their early days as translators. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. We have too many masters to serve. On the one hand, there are the original works, and on the other hand, there are the readers of our translations. Especially the readers. There are 1,000 Hamlets among 1,000 readers. It's impossible for us not to make mistakes and not be criticized. As soon as he said this, a few kind laughs came from below the stage. As translators, we have to thoroughly understand the original work. Not only do we have to understand the meaning of the words, but we also have to understand the meaning between the words, and even the tone beyond the words. We also have to let our readers understand the original work through the translation. The content can't be added or deleted, and the tone can't be out of tune. The meaning of the original work can only be heard from the strings, and the hidden meaning can only be attached to the words. It's not easy to thoroughly understand the original work, and it's even more difficult to express it according to the original work. What's more, if we translate it according to the original work, we may not be able to win the favor of the target readers. Yanghua said faintly. This is also the reason why so many excellent cultural ancient books in our country's history were not accepted by the people of other countries after they were translated. Therefore, when I'm translating, I'm also thinking about how to find a breakthrough. Although it's not easy, maybe the theory of adaptation proposed in my paper can give you a little inspiration. Before I state my theory, I want to make 2 points clear. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, first, this theory was not created by me, but was inspired by the theories of Dari and Rui translation and ancient Sanskrit translation abroad. Second, this theory is not applicable to everyone, or it can be said that the scope of application is very narrow. It has high requirements for the translators who use this theory. They need to have a superb grasp of multiple languages, and they also need to have a strong ability to reproduce. If you are judging my theory from the point of view of the general public, then there's no need for you to continue listening. When Poplar Fruit finished this sentence, his attitude was very humble, and his tone was very calm. However, between the lines, he reflected his strong confidence in himself. There were so many seniors in the audience, and Poplar Fruit's words were actually a little offensive. However, most of them just frowned and didn't say anything. They listened very carefully, wanting to see the source of Poplar Fruit's confidence. There's a reason why the requirements are so high. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, take the Dari and Rui bilingual translation for example. The two languages are originally of the same origin. Although there have been changes in history, the differences are not big. Therefore, translators of the two languages can easily reach the level of proficiency at the same time. This also makes it possible for them to change their translation. The grammar of Chinese and Western languages is very different, including the style of writing. Similar to the angle and sweetness, we can use the word translation to explain. When we translators do translation, if the translation is not good enough, the sentence will be like a somersault that did not succeed and fell to the ground, or 2 feet in the air, or a twisted foot that can't stand steadily. Therefore, if we want to reach the level of using the theory of translation, we need to have a very high level of language proficiency and the ability to reproduce. A figurative metaphor was always easier to accept than a straightforward explanation. Poplar Fruit's metaphor of translation made the atmosphere in the conference hall much better. Poplar Fruit continued his explanation closely. Everyone was mainly listening. In the whole audience, only Chen Zongdai had the leisure to pay attention to some of the details of his disciple's speech. Without mentioning anything else, Chen Zongdai was already sweating when he saw Poplar Fruit's completely off-script speech. Previously, Chen Zongdai had asked Poplar Fruit to type out the script, but Poplar Fruit said that he remembered it all, and did not need to bring the script to the stage. Chen Zongdai, who had decided to let Poplar Fruit soar from the beginning, did not say anything else. But now, it seemed that this kid really went off script. And after speaking for so long, he actually did not make any mistakes. Chen Zongdai actually had a trace of admiration for his disciple. He had been a teacher for so many years and had taught no less than 1,000 classes and speeches, but he could not do it completely off script. At least he had to bring an outline, but Poplar Fruit did it. Speaking off script was more charming than reading from a script. The occasional eye contact also slightly made up for Poplar Fruit's inappropriate flow during the speech. People with good memory are really enviable. Chapter 524. Generally speaking, an off-script speaker would use PowerPoint to straighten out their thoughts, but Poplar Fruit didn't. He had already asked the student volunteers to turn off the projector, and all the information he was going to talk about was organized in his mind. This could highlight the speaker's strength and make people believe in him, but it also brought about a small inconvenience. It was easy for the audience to forget the vast amount of information that Poplar Fruit talked about. Therefore, after Poplar Fruit went deeper into the lecture, the audience's attention was gradually focused. The entire conference room was silent, and only Poplar Fruit's voice could be heard. If Chen Zongdai was Poplar Fruit's talent scout, then Luo Lin was now Poplar Fruit's fan. He sat in the first row. Poplar Fruit didn't notice at first, but when he inadvertently glanced at him, Poplar Fruit paused. Luo Lin actually took out a pen and paper, and like a student in class, he listened attentively while diligently taking notes. Among the audience for Poplar Fruit's keynote presentation, any one of them was older than Poplar Fruit. In terms of seniority, they could definitely be Poplar Fruit's teacher. Although they were also listening with great interest, they were still reserved and wouldn't lower themselves to take notes. Therefore, when Poplar Fruit saw Professor Luo Lin's actions, he was shocked. The professors from Beijing International Studies University, who came with Luo Lin, were also speechless. They wiped the cold sweat from their foreheads and thought to themselves, old Luo, you're embarrassing us outside of Beijing." Poplar Fruit was talking excitedly when someone suddenly raised his hand. Poplar Fruit paused. He didn't plan on answering questions during his presentation, but after hesitating, he still smiled and asked, "Hello, how should I address this teacher?" He couldn't ignore him, otherwise he would leave the impression that he was arrogant. "Hello, I'm Professor Do from Xi'an International Studies University." Poplar Fruit's politeness made Professor Do very happy. He stood up and smiled. Just as he was about to take a deep breath and ask his question, Poplar Fruit spoke again. He first bowed and then said, "Professor Do, how are you? Do you have any questions for me? But can we put it aside for now and leave it for later?" Poplar Fruit's words stunned Professor Do. He had already stood up, but Poplar Fruit wanted him to sit back down. "Professor Do, I'm really sorry. It's like this." Poplar Fruit explained with a smile. "The report only lasts for 1.5 hours. In order to ensure that I can finish today's content, I have to postpone the Q&A session. I know that there are many areas where we can further communicate with each other. It doesn't matter. Even if the 1.5 hours is up, we can still continue to discuss. I hope that you can understand and forgive me." Originally, Professor Do felt a little embarrassed, but Poplar Fruit's timely apology and explanation gave him a way out. Professor Do looked at the dissatisfied eyes of the people around him, so he had no choice but to bow and sit down. If Poplar Fruit continued, he wouldn't even have time to breathe. Half an hour had already passed, and he had only just started with the translation theory. There were still 12 translation methods that he had to give examples one by one. Half an hour was tight for Poplar Fruit, so it passed in the blink of an eye. However, for the audience who went to listen to Professor Fei's report from Shanghai, half an hour felt like a year. Professor Fei was old, and his memory had deteriorated. Not only that, but his creativity and charisma were also not as good as before. In recent years, he had been in a semi-retired state. Other than teaching students as a teacher, he was eating his savings from his early years. Originally, Professor Fei came to this seminar to travel and relax. Therefore, he didn't pay much attention to this topic report at all. Not only was there no novelty in what he talked about, but he also treated the professors in the audience as his own students. He was holding a book of his previous work and reading it from it. Who would be able to listen to such a speech where he had to gasp for breath while speaking? If it weren't for everyone giving face to Professor Fei, some people would have left as soon as the lecture started. Even so, other than a few people in the front row who pretended to support him, the people in the back row were all lying down. They just happened to not have enough nap, so they wanted to take a nap. Professor Fei was old, and his body couldn't function anymore. After speaking for half an hour, he drank a large glass of water and trembled as he went to the bathroom. He called it a halftime break. This gave everyone a chance to escape. 2 professors from Nanhu University sneaked out from the back door. As they went down the stairs, they sighed and said, "If we knew that Professor Fei was so weak, we wouldn't have come." Yeah. Their colleague shook his head and said, let's go back and rest. You have a report to do at 4:30. It's a waste of time. I saw so many people sleeping behind us. They must be regretting it. Sleeping in the guest house is more comfortable than sleeping on the table. He gloated and said, "Luckily we were smart and left quickly. Otherwise, when Professor Fei came back, we wouldn't be able to leave." "Hey, wait, there's a report on the second floor." Their colleagues saw Poplar Fruit's conference room when they passed by the second floor. A few student volunteers were looking in through the window. The professor who wanted to go back to rest and prepare for his report shook his head and said, "Yeah, I think it's a report by a professor named Poplar Fruit from Higashiyama University. But he's not famous, so forget it." "Isn't there only one Shinzongdai in Higashiyama University? Who's Poplar Fruit?" Their colleague asked in confusion. "How about we take a look at the door?" "Well, we're already here anyway," the professor said non-committally. Therefore, the 2 professors from Xi'an International Studies University tiptoed into the small conference room. With just one look, they couldn't move. "Fuck. Is that a student on the stage? He's so young." Their colleague almost exclaimed. "He's Poplar Fruit?" The professor looked at Poplar Fruit in surprise and then looked at the audience. "Isn't that Professor Qiushan from Beijing International Studies University? Why is he here too? It seems like everyone from Beijing International Studies University is here." Their colleague looked around carefully and saw someone he knew. "That's Professor Guiqi. I saw him at the last CET 4 and CET 6 exam summary. What's so good about this Poplar Fruit? Why are there so many powerful people sitting at his report?" The professor said with jealousy. "How about we go in and listen?" Their colleague was eager. If Professor Guiqi is here, it must be more interesting than Professor Fei's report. "Let's listen. It's a waste of time to go back to the guest house anyway," the professor said. Therefore, the 2 asked the student volunteers to open the back door. They sneaked in and found a seat in the back row. Chapter 525. The 2 professors from Nanhu University snuck in. Perhaps they only wanted to see what the young Poplar Fruit was capable of, but once they sat down, they could not leave. Poplar Fruit was able to make so many powerful people listen attentively. Naturally, Poplar Fruit's speech was not like Professor Fei's. Not only was Poplar Fruit's speech not fake, but there was also a large amount of solid information. Every minute and every second, Poplar Fruit could throw out a question or example that was worth thinking about. There was no room for distraction. Those who were slightly less capable, such as Professor Do from Xi'an International Studies University, gradually could not keep up with the speed of Poplar Fruit's speech. He could not stop sweating on his forehead, but he did not dare to raise his hand to wipe it off. This was because if he was distracted, Poplar Fruit might jump to the next section. After the 2 professors from Nanhu University came in, The back door was repeatedly opened. Many professors who had just left from the third floor, or had just woken up, walked in suspiciously. Then they were attracted by the content of Poplar Fruit's speech. It was as if their butts had grown roots, and they could not move away. Deleting words that can be simplified is what Lu Zhiji of the Tang dynasty called shirtong, and Ypian meant by little annoyance. By eliminating the miscellaneous words, a large number of useless words can be eliminated, and the translation can be cleansed to be clear and smooth. When Poplar Fruit talked about the abbreviated translation, he even quoted from the classics. Of course, this is a very detailed and difficult process. On the one hand, you have to try to refine a sentence to be concise and appropriate, and on the other hand, you have to be careful not to delete words that cannot be omitted. Poplar Fruit gave many examples of Chinese to English and English-Chinese translations. These examples were accumulated when he was doing translation tasks, or when he was reading some excellent translations. Compared to the examples in textbooks, Poplar Fruit resonated more with the great translators present. They nodded in agreement and couldn't help but clap in a low voice. These small actions could be seen at any time in the small conference hall. Poplar Fruit was very happy to receive the recognition of so many seniors, but he couldn't thank them one by one. He could only silently remember them in his heart and continue with his speech. More and more people came in from behind, and the back seats were almost full. Some professors didn't even care about their old faces and shamelessly called the student volunteers in the back seats up and asked them to give up their seats. The small conference room wasn't big. If someone spoke from the back, they could hear it clearly from the front. Therefore, Poplar Fruit's speech was more or less affected. It was inconvenient for Chen Zongdai to get up, but Huang Shuiyu saw that there was a bit of chaos at the back, so he took the initiative to stand up and help Poplar Fruit maintain order. Seeing that the atmosphere was so lively, compared to the small conference hall, some professors secretly took out their phones and sent text messages to their friends, asking them to come and take a look. Whose student is this child? Higashiyama University? Is he Chen Zongdai's student? There were also a lot of professors who had just come down from the third floor and were separated from their friends. After a while, they were impressed by Poplar Fruit's speech and quickly sent text messages to their friends to come back. Hurry up, don't call me if you regret not coming. In fact, the happiest people were the 60-plus professors who were sitting in the conference hall from the beginning. They had been listening from the beginning. Poplar Fruit had a lot of valuable summaries that were placed in the first 30 minutes. In the last hour, he mainly used examples and sub-arguments to explain his previous theoretical points. Compared to the people who came in later, they had a clearer understanding of Poplar Fruit's theoretical framework, so they felt more comfortable listening to the latter part of the speech. If the professors who came in later hadn't read Yanggua's thesis, or if they didn't read it carefully, they didn't understand what she was talking about. Yanggua explained the subpoints very well, and they were very attractive. However, they couldn't connect all the information together. As they listened, they couldn't help but secretly ask the people next to them, without caring about their own faces. However, the people next to them might not know. Because of this, many people were depressed and regretful. They could only wait patiently for Poplar Fruit to finish speaking, and ask him for a copy of the lecture notes to study. 1.5 hours was neither long nor short, but for Poplar Fruit, it passed in the blink of an eye. He timed it very well. When it was almost 1 hour and 25 minutes, Poplar Fruit began his summary statement. When he was giving his summary statement, Poplar Fruit's voice trembled slightly. He was not nervous, but he was too excited. The small conference hall in front of him was full of people. Yes, it was full. As early as half an hour ago, the seats in the small conference hall were already full. However, there was still an endless stream of professors who heard the news. Of course, as professors, they wouldn't just sit on the aisle like the students. They would just stand at the back. There were more and more people. In the end, the small conference hall was full of people. In order to make sure everyone could hear, Poplar Fruit even raised his voice. It was not an exaggeration to say that this situation was explosive. Poplar Fruit never imagined this result. He did not even dare to imagine it. From the beginning, there were not enough people. To the end, it was full. In terms of the number of people, Poplar Fruit's audience doubled in just 1 hour, compared to the sparse audience in the conference hall on the 3rd floor. This situation was extremely ironic in the eyes of the organizers. Chen Zhongdai was very satisfied with his apprentice's performance. He could not help but look at the crowd behind him. He was very proud of himself as he said, "See, I told you guys not to come in the beginning. Now you have to stand." No matter how excited Poplar Fruit was, or how proud Chen Zhongdai was, the audience in the small conference hall was focused on memorizing every word that Poplar Fruit said. Maybe it was a pity that they did not hear the beginning, but every word that Poplar Fruit said was based on his experience. His original analysis could make people think deeply. Even though they were professors, they couldn't help but be impressed by Yang Guo's solid theoretical foundation and her ability to innovate new ideas. They did not hear the beginning, but they could not miss the end. That's the end of my speech. What I've said before is the student's humble opinion. Poplar Fruit walked out from the podium and said modestly, "There are a lot of immature and inconsiderate parts. I hope the seniors can point it out. Thank you." Poplar Fruit's thank you was very simple and powerful. Before he finished, he bowed deeply. His humble attitude made all the professors present very happy. Clap, clap. Luo Lin was the first to clap. Immediately after, the small conference hall was filled with thunderous applause. This was the affirmation from the elders. Poplar Fruit had to bow again until the applause gradually stopped. There are only 2 updates left for today. By the way, this month's update plan. Before the Spring Festival, Xiaohan's work had been too busy. Currently, he had been working overtime for 2 consecutive weeks. This week, from Tuesday to Thursday, he had worked overtime for 3 consecutive days, and only left the company at 11 p.m. Xiaohan really couldn't maintain 3 updates a day. So this month, he plans to update once a day from Monday to Friday and twice a day on weekends. In short, Xiaohan will not stop updating, please rest assured. After the Spring Festival, work will not be so hard. At that time, Xiaohan may explode and update a few more chapters as an apology. I hope the seniors can forgive him. Xiaohan is ashamed. Chapter 526. The keynote report ended at 3:30 p.m., but Poplar Fruit didn't come back until 6 p.m. After he finished speaking, he was surrounded by many professors. Even Poplar Fruit, who could multitask, was confused by the questions thrown at him. Poplar Fruit had seen this scene before when he attended lectures by famous people in school, but he didn't expect it to happen to him so soon. In the end, Poplar Fruit and 5 other professors, including Professor Rowling, came to a small classroom provided by the organizers. They sat together and discussed intensely for 2 hours. In the end, if Poplar Fruit didn't miss his daughter, the 5 professors who were particularly interested in his new theory wouldn't have let him go. Before they left, Rowling and the others made an agreement with Poplar Fruit. The 6 of them would form a discussion group and continue to study Poplar Fruit's translation theory. Communicating with Rowling and the other professors, Poplar Fruit was not only transmitting his own ideas, but he also benefited a lot. Not to mention Rowling, the other professors were all famous and had received many awards. Their years of experience and unique personal perspectives gave Poplar Fruit a different kind of inspiration. This was the real purpose of the seminar. The current academic world was no longer an era of self-preservation. Especially in the linguistics and translation fields, the technological content was not high, so there was no need to hide. It was far more effective to have a few more people to discuss than to lock oneself in a room and rack one's brains. When they returned to the guest house, Kiki, who hadn't seen her father for the whole afternoon, was already impatient. When she heard the door open, she slipped out of bed and Xiong Xiaolin couldn't catch her. The little girl ran all the way to her father, and her crisp and pleasant voice penetrated the corridor of the entire floor. "Daddy." "Haha, Kiki, did you miss Daddy?" Poplar Fruit picked up his daughter, threw her in the air, and asked lovingly. Chi-Chi's bell-like laughter followed her father's tossing, creating rings of invisible sound waves in the air. She reached out a hand, grabbed her father's nose, and pouted her little mouth as she said, "Chi-Chi missed you so much." "Where did Daddy go?" "Papa, can you bring Chi-Chi with you in the future?" Chi-Chi looked at her father pitifully and acted coquettishly. Daddy has to work today. Poplar Fruit rubbed Kiki's soft hair and said intimately, Kiki can't watch TV with sister in the guest house. But there's no pleasant goat. Kiki pulled her father's sleeve and pointed to Zhu Jingjing. Sister won't let me watch pleasant goat. There's really no pleasant goat on the computer. Zhu Jingjing patted her laptop and said with a bitter face. Poplar Fruit asked about it, and then he knew the situation. In the afternoon, Kiki played with Goldie for a while, and then pestered sister Xiong Xiaolin, saying that she wanted to watch Pleasant Goat on TV. Xiong Xiaofeng ran to turn on the TV for her, and Kiki took the remote control and found the children's channel with ease. As a result, the children's channel was actually broadcasting some boring science and education programs, which made Kiki feel impatient. Zhu Jingjing just happened to bring the computer to take care of the 3 children, so Kiki pestered Zhu Jingjing to lend her the computer to play with. How could there be Pleasant Goat on Zhu Jingjing's computer, which was only suitable for children to watch? In the guest house, she couldn't figure out how to connect to the internet for a while, and finally Kiki could only be disappointed again. Poplar Fruit scratched his head, and then he remembered that his Apple laptop was broken in the car accident. The videos of Pleasant Goat that he downloaded for Kiki were all saved on the computer, and if it was saved on the hard drive, he could borrow Zhu Jingjing's computer. However, it was still inconvenient without a computer. Poplar Fruit smiled and pinched Kiki's chubby little face and said, Dad knows, today I'll take Kiki to buy a computer, okay? Then Chi-Chi will be able to watch Pleasant Goat. Buy it for Kiki? Kiki grabbed her father's big hand and looked at him with her big eyes and asked, Kiki also has a computer? Poplar Fruit laughed and rubbed her hair and said, Little fool, isn't Dad's computer Kiki's? Chi-Chi is not a little idiot. Chi-Chi said angrily as she grabbed her father's big hand that was rubbing her hair. Xiaofeng Xiaolin. Poplar Fruit turned and smiled at Xiong Xiaofeng, who looked at him with longing. Why are you still standing here? Go change your shoes, we'll go downtown tonight. Xiong Xiaofeng couldn't hold back, and he was playful by nature. When he heard Poplar Fruit's call, he slipped out of bed and ran to his shoes. His excitement spurred Chi-Chi on. Chi-Chi burrowed out of her father's arms, and also jumped up and down on the ground while making a big fuss. Jingjing, do you want to come too? Poplar Fruit turned and asked Zhu Jingjing with a smile. Zhu Jingjing pushed the big frame glasses on the bridge of her nose, shook her head and said, No, I have to prepare for the dean's report tonight. Poplar Fruit just asked politely, and didn't insist. Let's change into new clothes. Poplar Fruit saw that Xiong Xiaofeng and Xiong Xiaofeng were still wearing the blue linen clothes they brought from home, and the clothes they bought yesterday were put aside like treasures. He smiled and said, Clothes are bought to wear, not to collect. Uncle. Xiong Xiaolin walked to Poplar Fruit shyly, looked up and said with a red face, Can you take me to see my mother? Yes. Yi Nuzang had surgery yesterday, and only Xiong Jiwu was with her in the hospital. Poplar Fruit left the 2 children in the guest house to help take care of Kiki, but forgot to take them to see their mother. Hearing his sister's words, Xiong Xiaofeng, who was jumping up and down, stopped, and his eyes suddenly turned red. These 2 children, one was lively, and the other was calm, but they were both good children who valued friendship and righteousness. Poplar Fruit squatted down with guilt, hugged Xiong Xiaofeng, and then said softly to Xiong Xiaolin, I'm sorry, Xiaolin, Uncle forgot. Let's go to the hospital to see your mother first. After changing clothes, Poplar Fruit turned into the head of the children's group again, and led the 3 children to the hospital. Because the students in the university town were on vacation, there were fewer people on the road, but walking on the road, the 3 children of different ages, tall and short, attracted the attention of many passers-by. The arrival of the 2 children made Yi Nuzang, who had just recovered a little bit, very happy. She didn't complain about Poplar Fruit, but because Poplar Fruit took time out of his busy schedule to come, she was touched. Yi Nuzang's condition had improved a lot. After the operation, the disease didn't recur and the wound was slowly healing. Of course it took time. Poplar Fruit didn't disturb her. After letting the 2 children talk with their mother for a while, Poplar Fruit took them away. There are only 2 updates today, and by the way, this month's update plan. Before the Spring Festival, Xiaohan's work was really busy. Now he has been working overtime for 2 weeks in a row. This week, from Tuesday to Thursday, he worked overtime for 3 days in a row until 11 o'clock in the evening. Xiaohan really can't maintain 3 updates a day. So this month, he plans to update once a day from Monday to Friday, and twice a day on weekends. In short, Xiaohan won't stop updating, please rest assured. After the Spring Festival, work won't be so hard. At that time, Xiaohan may explode and update a few more chapters to apologize. I hope you can forgive me. I'm ashamed to retreat. Chapter 527. After the car broke down, Poplar Fruit only felt that it was very troublesome. Especially in the university town, it was very difficult to get a taxi, so Poplar Fruit simply took the 3 children to take the subway. Kiki was fine, but when Xiong Xiaolin and Xiong Xiaofeng saw the subway, they were shocked. For them, the subway was just a description of what their father told the outside world. But after all, Xiong Jiwu's words were pale. Even if he talked for 3 days and 3 nights, it was still not as good as seeing it with their own eyes. The subway was one of the most technologically advanced things in a human city. Colorful backlit billboards could be seen everywhere, fully powered closed doors, endless carriages, and LED screens embedded in the walls of the carriages. The most shocking thing for the children was when the subway suddenly climbed from the deep underground to the high bridge in Chong City. Because it was fast and the noise was low, the children almost didn't have any premonition. Suddenly, they found that the dark tunnel was replaced by the starry city lights, as if they had instantly traveled through time and space. It was also the first time that Poplar Fruit saw such a scene. Almost all the subways in Yangcheng were underground. He used to take the subway in Harbor City, but that was during the day, so it was difficult for him to feel such a strong visual impact. Papa! Kiki was restless in Poplar Fruit's arms again. She called out sweetly, then turned over and knelt on Poplar Fruit's thigh with her small knees. She almost hurt Poplar Fruit internally. Ouch! Poplar Fruit grimaced and quickly used his hands to support Kiki's legs. The surface area was too small, and Kiki's knees happened to be on Poplar Fruit's tendons, so it was very uncomfortable. Papa, Kiki also wants to play. Kiki didn't notice her father's painful expression at all. She twisted her body and pointed at the pull tab in the middle of the subway carriage, and said excitedly, "Play what?" Poplar Fruit raised his head and looked at her strangely. "Pull tab? What's so fun about pulling tabs? Kiki should be like that uncle. Like this, pull that." Kiki raised her right arm and said. Poplar Fruit couldn't persuade her, so he picked up Kiki and walked to the middle of the aisle. Fortunately, there weren't many people on this section of the subway. Not many people were standing, so the aisle was quite spacious. "What are you going to do?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. He was taller, and Kiki was in his arms. She looked like a small mountain. As long as she raised her hand slightly, she could touch the blue tab. Kiki's eyes were wide open. She looked at it curiously for a while before reaching out to touch it. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but laugh. "What are you afraid of? This thing doesn't bite." Hearing the word bite, Kiki retracted her hand in fear. However, she immediately realized that there was a no in her father's words. With her father's encouragement, Kiki finally clasped the tab with her right hand. "Lower, lower." Kiki suddenly said in English. The little girl had learned some words in English, French, and other languages. Sometimes when she listened to her father read, she didn't know what most of the words meant. She only knew how to pronounce them. However, when she knew the meaning, she could use them very skillfully. For example, lower. Chi-Chi didn't know how to express herself in Chinese to ask her father to lower himself a little. So she used English words in a hurry. Poplar Fruit smiled. He moved his left arm, which was holding Kiki, down a little so that Kiki could hold the tab in a more comfortable position. Kiki grabbed the tab and shook it. Then she twisted it. She found that the tab couldn't move, so she looked at the others to see how they were playing. "Papa." Kiki let go of her left hand and pointed to another tab half a meter away. "That Kiki wants it too." "You can't reach it," Poplar Fruit said with a laugh. "Why?" Kiki asked casually. "No reason. Why don't you try it?" Poplar Fruit moved Kiki to the left and held her with his right hand. Then he pulled the tab with his left hand. Chi-Chi waved her left hand in the air as she cried out, "Aya, Aya," as if she was exerting all her strength. However, Kiki was still too small. Even if she stretched out her arms, she still couldn't reach the tab. "Oh!" Kiki screamed in frustration. She turned her head to look at her father. Her expression showed that she was very unhappy. "Are you blaming me?" Poplar Fruit smiled and touched Kiki's forehead with his nose. He said, "Dad told you to eat more food every day, but you don't listen. If you don't eat, how can you grow up?" At this time, another station had passed. Several people came up. One of them took the first step and sat in Poplar Fruit's previous seat. He was a little fat and squeezed together with the Xiong siblings. When he saw Poplar Fruit holding Kiki, he jumped up again. He gasped and said embarrassedly, "Brother, come here. You take the child. You sit." Poplar Fruit turned his head and smiled at him. He said, "It doesn't matter. You sit. I only have 2 stations left." "No, really. You sit." This fat man was very honest. He looked apologetic and insisted on giving his seat to Poplar Fruit. "There's really no need." Poplar Fruit smiled and pointed at Kiki. He said, "She wants to play with the tab." After confirming that Poplar Fruit didn't need to sit, the fat man sat down. He turned his head to look at the timid Xiong siblings. The Xiong siblings rarely saw such a fat man. They were a little afraid when they saw the fat man. The fat man scratched his head. He smiled at the Xiong siblings and then squeezed to the side to give them some space. Poplar Fruit didn't notice this. Seeing that Kiki began to concentrate on the tab in her hand, Poplar Fruit rolled his eyes. He smiled and moved his right arm that was holding Kiki's little butt down. Kiki was so scared that she quickly grabbed the tab. Although she was still sitting in her father's arms, the sudden weightlessness wasn't good. Poplar Fruit realized that he had gone too far. In order to not let his daughter blame him, he smiled and whispered in Kiki's ear, "Kiki, let's play a pull-up, okay?" "What's a pull-up?" Kiki asked curiously. "You pull this tab, and then lift yourself up." Poplar Fruit pretended to lift Kiki up with difficulty, then put her down again. Kiki was very smart. She immediately understood. She nodded happily. Then she really grabbed the tab with her 2 little hands and pulled up with her little arms. With Kiki's strength, it was impossible for her to do a pull-up. Poplar Fruit smiled in the back, then gently held Kiki's little butt. He didn't use much strength. In Kiki's eyes, it really looked like he was pulling her up. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, Kiki's pleasant laughter resounded throughout the entire car. When the tired people in Chongqing saw Kiki's angelic smile, it was as if their fatigue had been swept away. They all smiled knowingly. "I've wanted to write this plot for a long time. I remember that when Xiao Han came back from work, he saw an uncle playing with this ring on the subway with his daughter. Xiao Han wanted to give up his seat for him, but the uncle smiled and refused. The cute baby's crying still lingered in Xiao Han's mind. Of course, Xiao Han isn't Brother Fatty. Brother Fatty is a character for the plot. Don't get carried away. O___. Oh. Chapter 528. When they arrived at Namping Station, Poplar Fruit called for the Xiong siblings to get off the car. He had to be extra careful. As the leader of the children's group, he couldn't leave any of the 3 children behind. Poplar Fruit saw that Brother Fatty, whom he had a good impression of, was also at the station. He was dragging 2 large suitcases in each hand. Of course, he didn't look like he was traveling, but more like he was delivering goods. Seeing him sweating profusely, Poplar Fruit asked kindly, "Do you need help?" No need, no need. Thank you, thank you," Brother Fatty said gratefully. "You take care of the children. I can take care of this." Namping Station was crowded with people. Poplar Fruit struggled to squeeze out of the station with the 3 children. At this time, Brother Fatty's figure could no longer be seen. However, this was normal. In the vast metropolis, everyone you saw might just be a passerby in your life. After appearing once, you would never see them again. When they reached the ground, they saw Wanda Plaza outside. There were even more people here. There was also a commercial performance in the plaza. They didn't know which small celebrity was singing on the stage. Colorful laser lights danced in the night sky like a group of demons. Sister, hold on to my clothes. Don't lose me. Poplar Fruit squatted down and shouted in Xiong Xiaolin's ear. There were too many people here, and he couldn't take care of them all. He could only carry Xiong Xiaofeng, who was most likely to get lost. Xiong Xiaofeng was much heavier than Kiki. Although he looked a little thin due to malnutrition, he was still an 8 or 9-year-old boy. He alone was equivalent to 2 Kiki. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit was very strong. It wasn't a problem for him to carry one with one hand. Although Xiong Xiaolin was like her brother, dazzled by the bustling night market, she firmly remembered Poplar Fruit's instructions. She grabbed onto Poplar Fruit's clothes and followed behind Poplar Fruit. Walking into the shops of Wanda Plaza, there were fewer people and less chaotic. Poplar Fruit let Xiong Xiaofeng down. However, after walking around the first floor of the shop, Poplar Fruit regretted it. This place sold either gold, silver, jewelry, or high-end skincare products such as facial masks and toners. There was no need to look at the second and third floors. They were all high-end fashion. There was no need to bring the children here. After coming out, Yanghua picked Xiong Xiaofeng up again. They walked towards the food street. Compared to the big shops, this place was more approachable. What do you like to eat? Poplar Fruit asked Xiong Xiaofeng. Oh. Xiong Xiaofeng smelled the aroma of the barbecue and swallowed his saliva. However, he was too embarrassed to mention it to Yanghua. When Yanghua asked him, he didn't say anything for a long time. Kiki protested a few times with dissatisfaction. She saw that her father didn't ask her but asked her big brother. She was very jealous. After attracting her father's attention, she excitedly pointed to the delicious food. Papa, Kiki also wants to eat. One couldn't answer, and the other wanted to eat everything. Poplar Fruit had to make the decision himself. First, he bought a cup of pearl milk tea for each of the 2 children. Then, Poplar Fruit found a barbecue shop that was not a roadside stall, but looked high-end and hygienic. Give me 10 skewers, 5 skewers of beef balls, 3 skewers of chicken wings, 3 skewers of chicken legs, 3 skewers of enoki mushrooms, and 3 skewers of roasted leeks. The children were too shy. Poplar Fruit didn't ask them what they wanted to eat and directly ordered. Perhaps because he heard Poplar Fruit speak Mandarin, the boss asked with experience, "Do you want spicy?" Kiki doesn't want spicy. Kiki turned her head hard and said seriously. Poplar Fruit smiled and asked the Xiong siblings. The siblings were from Guishan province. It was their custom to eat spicy food. So Poplar Fruit told the boss, "Then I want a non-spicy dish of each kind, and spicy for the rest. By the way, give me a bowl of porridge. I want fish egg porridge." Kiki doesn't want spicy food. Kiki wrinkled her little nose, pulled her father's arm and said with dissatisfaction, "I ordered non-spicy food for you. Don't be afraid." Poplar Fruit laughed and said. Xiong Xiaolin quietly sat in the chair, motionless like a lady. Xiong Xiaofeng was still immersed in the lively atmosphere outside. He held the milk tea and looked around the barbecue shop. Then he greedily took a sip of the milk tea and chewed on the springy pearls with relish. Poplar Fruit also bought milk tea for Kiki. However, Poplar Fruit didn't let Kiki drink too much. After all, the pearls were so small. If Kiki wasn't careful, she could choke on them. Kiki looked at brother Xiong Xiaofeng curiously. She imitated him and took a sip of milk tea. Then she smacked her lips. Her head was full of questions. What's so fun about this? The barbecue was served. The spicy and non-spicy food were divided into several plates. However, the people in Chong City could eat spicy food, so they put a lot of chili on the skewers. The spicy smell could be smelled from afar. To people who like spicy food, this was undoubtedly the most wonderful smell in the world. However, Kiki smelled it and sneezed a few times. She even shrank back into her father's arms in fear. "Eat, don't be shy. Help yourself to whatever you want to eat." Poplar Fruit smiled and picked up a skewer with chili. He took a bite. He knew that if he didn't eat, the 2 children would be too embarrassed to eat. Poplar Fruit suddenly grabbed the milk tea on the table and took a sip. He didn't expect the chili to be so strong. It exploded on the tip of his tongue, and he felt his hair stand on end. Oh. Kiki saw her father's expression and became even more dissatisfied. She twisted her body and shouted in protest, "Kiki doesn't eat spicy food." Hee hee hee. Xiong Xiaofeng chuckled. The Xiong siblings, on the other hand, enjoyed the spicy food. Xiong Xiaolin took small bites while Xiong Xiaofeng took big bites. The two of them ate with relish. "This isn't spicy." Poplar Fruit picked up a non-spicy barbecue wing. He took a small bite first. When he felt that it wasn't so hot anymore, he moved closer to Kiki. Kiki shrank back in fear. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "It's really not spicy. If you don't believe me, smell it." Kiki mustered up her courage and took a bite. Her eyes lit up. It was so delicious. She couldn't help but take another bite, but her father didn't let her continue eating. The little girl had only eaten for more than an hour, so she couldn't eat too much. Poplar Fruit let her try 2 bites of everything, except for the leeks that were harder to digest. Then she drank 2 mouthfuls of porridge. Kiki was full. In the end, Chi-Chi could only watch as her father gobbled up the rest of the barbecue. Although she really wanted to eat, she had already lost her appetite. Most of the barbecue was very spicy. Even Poplar Fruit couldn't stand it. Thus, the Xiong siblings happily had a delicious barbecue meal, especially Xiong Xiaofeng. He ate quickly and a lot. In the end, he was so happy that he couldn't even walk. Chapter 529. Poplar Fruit came out today not only to bring the children to the night market in Chong City, but also to buy a new laptop. After eating barbecue, Poplar Fruit took the children to the streets to find a place to buy a laptop. There used to be a digital mall here, but it was closed at night, he said, pointing to the Futian building after asking a passerby. Oh. Poplar Fruit sighed regretfully. He wanted to buy an Apple laptop because Apple's MacBook had good performance and was especially thin and light. It was very portable in his bag. But the digital mall was closed. Where could he buy one now? They wandered around the nearby squares aimlessly. It was getting late. It was almost 9 o'clock. Kiki kept yawning. The little girl wanted to sleep. Xiong Xiaofeng and Xiong Xiaolin were still in high spirits. Poplar Fruit didn't know if they had good physical strength because they often worked, or if they were in high spirits and didn't feel tired. "Hey, bro." Poplar Fruit was about to go back when he suddenly heard a familiar voice. In Chong City, Poplar Fruit didn't know many people, but the word bro had a northern accent. Poplar Fruit heard it more than an hour ago. Turning around, Poplar Fruit saw the fat guy he saw on the subway poking his head out of a small accessory shop by the roadside. He was waving his hand and greeting Poplar Fruit. "Fat." Poplar Fruit almost let it slip. He walked over and smiled. "Hello, you have a shop here?" "It's okay. Just call me Fat Brother." The fat guy chuckled. His smile gave people a simple and honest feeling. It must be fate to meet again in one day. "Are you out shopping with the children?" Poplar Fruit smiled and nodded in agreement. "Do you want some hair accessories?" The fat guy skillfully began to take off 2 headbands and promote them. "Little girl, you'll look good wearing them." No need, no need." Xiong Xiaolin waved her hand in embarrassment. "Haha, a little girl is still so shy." The fat brother had to retract his hand. In order to cover up his embarrassment, he had to laugh twice. "Brother Fatty, show me one." Poplar Fruit stretched out his right hand curiously. He had a good impression of this straightforward and honest fat brother. Hearing Poplar Fruit's words, Brother Poplar Fruit's interest was piqued again. He handed over a sparkling purple butterfly flower and said to Poplar Fruit, "Brother, since we're fated to meet, and we hit it off so well at first sight," Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Brother Fatty won't lie to you." He moved closer to Poplar Fruit and covered his mouth as he said in a low voice, "We told the public that these are Korean goods, but in reality, they were all imported from Jiangnan province. Of course, you don't have to worry. After all, the designs are all the same, and the quality is top-notch. Fat Bro here can guarantee that." Poplar Fruit took it and pinched it. The hair flower's fabric seemed to be real satin. The sparkling stars on it weren't broken crystals, but embroidered with a special reflective material. It was soft to the touch and didn't hurt. "Xiaolin, put it on for me to see." Poplar Fruit smiled. Although it was a suggestion, because this little girl was too shy, his tone was a little more serious, and there was a sense of indisputability. Xiong Xiaolin was thin-skinned, and 2 patches of red appeared on her wheat-colored skin. However, because of the flickering lights, no one saw it. It's pretty. Poplar Fruit smiled as he watched Xiong Xiaolin put on the hair flower. Little girl, you're a natural beauty. I think if you walk around our shop with this hair flower, our business will be booming today. Haha, I'm just kidding. Brother Fatty waved his hand and said cheerfully, Sister, you're really beautiful. Xiong Xiaofeng didn't learn Mandarin well, so it sounded awkward. However, his praise was sincere, which made Xiong Xiaolin even more shy. Haha, don't be an ostrich. Everyone is praising you. Poplar Fruit encouraged her with a smile. How much is it? Poplar Fruit was quite satisfied. If it weren't for the fact that Kiki had already fallen asleep in his arms, Poplar Fruit would have let Kiki try it on. Of course, Kiki probably couldn't wear it. Haha, since I feel like old friends at first sight, I won't make any false promises. I'll sell it to others for this price. Brother Fatty opened his palm, then stretched out a finger and said, Brother, 10 yuan is not expensive, right? Poplar Fruit certainly wouldn't believe him about the cost, but 10 yuan for such an exquisite hair flower ornament was really not expensive. Poplar Fruit picked 2 more and paid together. Brother Fatty, you're very familiar with this place, right? Do you know where I can buy an Apple computer in addition to the Digital Electronic City? I want to buy a MacBook. Poplar Fruit took the change and asked casually. Yes, there is an Apple store in front, but it's expensive. It's the price on the official website. Brother Fatty shook his head and said, If you're not in a hurry, come to the Digital Electronic City tomorrow to buy it. There are a lot of second-rate goods. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, It's okay if it's expensive. The quality of the store is still guaranteed, and can be guaranteed. He didn't know if second-rate goods could be trusted outside of Guangdong province. Maybe they were refurbished goods. Uncle, do you want to buy an apple? Xiong Xiaolin asked weakly. She held the plastic bag of hair flowers that Poplar Fruit gave her in front of her chest like a treasure. Poplar Fruit looked at her puzzled. Xiong Xiaolin continued to say, We don't have to buy it outside. If Uncle wants to eat apples, we have a lot of them on the mountain. You can eat as many as you want. They're big and sweet. Poplar Fruit smiled. He patted Xiong Xiaolin's head and said, No, the apple Uncle said is not a real apple. It's just a name. It's from a laptop. Brother, you're really rich. Brother Fatty happily squeezed out of the store again. He clapped his hands and said, I'll take you there. You don't know the way. Don't you need to look after the store? Poplar Fruit asked strangely. It's okay. I'll just walk away for a while. Brother Fatty laughed. He shouted from the sock shop next door. Auntie Lou, help me look after the store. I'll go out for a while. Okay. He didn't see anyone, but only heard the response. Brother Fatty led the way with ease. Along the way, he kept greeting the surrounding peddlers. It seemed that he was very popular. Right, I still don't know how to call you brother. Brother Fatty laughed. My name is Qin Yuanqing. My friends think that my name is too hard to pronounce, so they all call me Brother Fatty. My name is Poplar Fruit. You can call me Little Yang. Poplar Fruit laughed. Just call me Brother Yang. It's more intimate. Brother Fatty said happily. I guess you're a teacher, right? Huh. Why do you think so? Poplar Fruit asked in surprise. Although it's not completely correct, it's not far from it. It's very simple. Brother Fatty laughed. Isn't the university town behind your subway line? The university town is filled with either teachers or students. Students don't have families to feed. Moreover, your temperament is the most similar to a teacher. Chapter 530. Xiong Xiaofeng, who was walking in front, heard it. He turned his head to look at Uncle Poplar Fruit, and nodded his head involuntarily. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, I'm not a teacher yet. I'm studying for a master's degree, but I'm also working as a teaching assistant. Brother Fatty looked at Poplar Fruit in awe and said, Master's degree, great talent. Brother Fatty admires scholars the most in my life. Really? Brother Fatty, You're a businessman. Shouldn't you target those big bosses who make a lot of money every day? Poplar Fruit asked curiously. Since ancient times, businessmen and scholars were not on the same channel. Scholars felt that businessmen were full of the smell of money, while businessmen felt that scholars were too pedantic. You can't see the hard work of small businessmen like us. Every day, we have to get up early, move goods, deliver goods, welcome customers, and shout. We're so busy that we sweat every day, but we can't make much money. We also have to take care of this and that. Brother Fatty said seriously. If it weren't for the fact that I've been in the city for so long and don't know what it's like to farm, Brother Fatty would want to go back to the countryside and stay there. At least I don't have to work so hard. Poplar Fruit could only persuade him to look on the bright side. In fact, all industries are like this. Brother Fatty, if you persevere and seize the opportunity, you can become a big boss. That's true, but Brother Fatty has been in that small street for 4 or 5 years, and I've never seen anyone succeed. Brother Fatty shook his head. Aren't there also people who can't find a job while studying? Poplar Fruit laughed. That's because they don't study hard. Brother Fatty's eyebrows trembled and he said disdainfully, I heard a lot of uncles and aunties say that the children they know, as long as they have good grades, are all white-collar workers in big companies. Every day, they dress well and sit in a spacious and bright office building. It's comfortable. They can easily make money in a month that we can't make in a year. Brother Fatty said with a little longing. Xiong Xiaofeng, who was still looking around, turned his head and looked at the fat bro seriously. He opened his mouth slightly, but no one knew what he was thinking. Brother Fatty sighed again and said, I can't do it. I didn't learn well when I was studying. I can't even speak English well. Once, a foreigner came to buy something from me and I couldn't communicate with him at all. Take it one step at a time. There is always hope in life. Poplar Fruit said to him with a smile. Poplar Fruit could only comfort him. You have to walk your own path in life. No one can help you walk it. However, he smiled and put his hand on the shoulder of Xiong Xiaofeng, who was walking in front of him and Poplar Fruit, and said loudly, Child, you have to study hard. For us poor children, studying is the best way out. Brother Fatty had a good eye for people. Although the Xiong siblings were dressed well today, they couldn't hide the inferiority in their hearts. Looking at the skinny Xiong Xiaofeng being hugged by Brother Fatty, who was several times bigger than him, it was a little funny. However, Xiong Xiaofeng didn't think so. He felt Brother Fatty's strong palm and sincere encouragement. Xiong Xiaofeng squeezed his head out from under Brother Fatty's arm and nodded gratefully. Along the way they talked and laughed. Xiong Xiaofeng also mustered up the courage to chat with Brother Fatty. Uncle, the city is so lively. It's much more fun than the mountains. Fat Bro smiled and said, Life in a big city is something you won't want to go back even if you've been here. Although it's tough here, it's colorful. Take Fat Bro for example. I'm a businessman. My shop is next to these big shopping malls. Whenever Fat Bro makes a lot of money, I'll buy some clothes to wear. There's also food and fun. Shirching doesn't have much, but it has a lot of good food and fun. Brother Fatty said with a look of longing. Brother Fatty loves Shirching's spicy hot pot. My biggest dream in this life is to eat all the hot pot restaurants in Shirching. You must have eaten a lot, right? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Apart from those hot pot restaurants that are too expensive to afford, I've left my mark on all the other big and small hot pot restaurants in Yubei. Brother Fatty smiled proudly. Xiong Xiaofeng looked at him with admiration. The more Brother Fatty spoke, the more excited he became. Also, there are many concerts in the big cities. Your Brother Fatty has been to a few of them. If you want to sing by yourself, you can book a KTV room and howl for a few hours. It's not expensive, it's really not expensive. There are also many discounts and promotions. In general, although life in a big city is a little tiring, and the air you breathe is not as fresh as the air in the village, living here, you can feel hope at every moment. Brother Fatty spoke enthusiastically, and Xiong Xiaofeng was also fascinated. The journey was not far, but the atmosphere between the two of them became more and more lively. There were no Apple retail stores in Shirching. The store that Brother Fatty was talking about was only selling Apple products under the name of an Apple Experience store. Of course, To be able to open an Apple Experience store, it naturally had Apple's authorization. The quality was still guaranteed. Brother Fatty brought poplar fruit to the door and stopped. He smiled heartily and said, "Brother Yang, I'll send you here." "Uncle, are you leaving?" Xiong Xiaofeng asked reluctantly. Poplar fruit also invited him. "Brother Fatty, why don't we go in together? Please lead the way. I'll treat you to something to drink later." It's okay. Brother Fatty waved his hand and smiled. "I still have to go back and look after the store. If I leave for too long, I won't be able to do business today." Poplar fruit did not force him to stay. He smiled and shook hands with Brother Fatty. "All right, I won't delay your business. The next time I come to Shecheng, I'll patronize your business. I hope that by then, you'll have become a big boss." On the other hand, Xiong Xiaofeng was very reluctant. Brother Fatty patted Xiong Xiaofeng's shoulder hard. Xiong Xiaofeng could not help but shake his shoulder. Brother Fatty laughed loudly and said, "Xiao Xiong, let's meet again if fate wills it." Poplar fruit pushed Xiong Xiaofeng, who had become very stiff, and smiled. "Why aren't you hugging your Uncle Fatty and saying goodbye? There's no need to be sentimental, Xiao Xiong. We're men, so we should be more carefree." Brother Fatty laughed heartily. He stretched out his right fist towards Xiong Xiaofeng and stopped in front of him. Xiong Xiaofeng blinked and hesitated for a moment. Then he followed suit and stretched out his small fist. "Come." Brother Fatty's right fist bumped into Xiong Xiaofeng's fist, and a bang sound came out of his mouth. Xiong Xiaofeng also shouted bang. Then he followed Brother Fatty's example and opened his fist, simulating an explosion. "Ha ha ha ha." Xiong Xiaofeng laughed happily with Brother Fatty. The melancholy of parting had dissipated quite a bit. All good things must come to an end. Brother Fatty finally left under Xiong Xiaofeng's reluctant gaze. However, his words and his description of the beautiful life in the big city had left a deep impression on Xiong Xiaofeng and even Xiong Xiaolin, who was very shy in front of strangers. Perhaps no one knew that a seed had been deeply planted. Perhaps in the near future it would take root and sprout. Chapter 531. When they returned from outside, it was already late at night in the university town. Even the most lively Xiong Xiaofeng had fallen asleep on Poplar Fruit's arm. In the Apple store, not only did Poplar Fruit buy a MacBook, but he also bought the iPad 3 that he had always wanted to buy but hadn't been released in China. Although the new iPad 3 was very big, it was much thinner than the previous generations of iPads, and the Retina screen looked clearer and more comfortable. Compared to a laptop, the iPad obviously attracted the children's attention more. In the Apple store, Poplar Fruit downloaded a few games like Fruit Ninja. On the subway, Xiong Xiaofeng was reluctant to let go of the iPad. But after all, he was still young, and he used to sleep early in the mountains. Xiong Xiaofeng's obsession with iPad games couldn't resist the waves of drowsiness that came like waves. When he saw Xiong Xiaofeng holding the iPad and starting to doze off, Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He put the iPad away and coaxed him to sleep. So when they got off the subway, Poplar Fruit had to carry Kiki in his left hand and Xiong Xiaofeng in his right. The two sleeping children were like koalas hugging Poplar Fruit's arm and hanging onto Poplar Fruit's body. Poplar Fruit's physical fitness was good. Carrying two children that definitely weighed more than 50 kilograms, Xiong Xiaofeng was heavier. He was still able to talk to Xiong Xiaolin without panting or blushing. Xiong Xiaolin was also very sleepy, but she still forced herself to help Uncle Poplar Fruit carry things. Carrying two children, Poplar Fruit didn't have free hands. Fortunately, he bought a computer bag that could store the computer and tablet. Xiong Xiaolin just carried it like this. On the empty school road, Xiong Xiaolin hugged her laptop to her chest. Her timid eyes kept looking left and right, as if a bad guy would jump out from the bushes on the side of the road and snatch the laptop away from her. Poplar Fruit took a few steps forward and heard Xiong Xiaolin's heavy footsteps. He turned his head and saw that the little girl's face was deathly pale. In order to keep up with Poplar Fruit, she was already jogging. Poplar Fruit had no choice but to slow down a little. He comforted her with a smile. "Xiaolin, what are you afraid of? Walk slowly, don't hug me so tightly." Xiong Xiaolin, on the other hand, acted as if she didn't hear him. She continued to walk while looking left and right. There were a few times when she almost bumped into Poplar Fruit's leg. Poplar Fruit said helplessly, "Don't be nervous. Isn't Uncle here?" When they finally returned to the guest house, Xiong Xiaolin breathed a sigh of relief. When Poplar Fruit sent Xiong Xiaofeng back to the bed in their room, he found that Xiong Jiwu just came back to take a bath, and then went to the hospital to accompany the bed. He really didn't worry about the two children. Poplar Fruit let Xiong Xiaolin take a bath and sleep in peace. He then took Kiki back to his room. After being busy for a while, Poplar Fruit moved a chair to sit on the narrow balcony. Thinking back to his experience tonight, it was the first time he had taken so many children to the downtown area to play. Although there was no problem physically, he was still a little tired mentally. He had to think about where to play while taking care of the three children, especially when there were so many people. In this strange city, it would be a big trouble if they got lost. After a whole night, Poplar Fruit felt a little tired. At this time it was almost 11 o'clock. Poplar Fruit was playing with the mobile phone in his hand, hesitating. He wanted to call Fong Beibei, but according to his understanding of Fong Beibei was about to go to bed at this time. Or she might have already fallen asleep. Just as Poplar Fruit was hesitating, his mobile phone suddenly rang. Glancing at the lit screen, Poplar Fruit was stunned. It was Zheng Yujie calling. Zheng Yujie rarely called Poplar Fruit in the middle of the night, because if she didn't work overtime, she would go to bed early. It was said that going to bed early was helpful for cell regeneration. If a girl often stayed up late, it would be easy for her to grow old. But today was special. Zheng Yujie encountered something particularly depressing. Previously, Zheng Yujie was very busy, mainly because of two things. The first was Poplar Fruit's new translated book, Young Pi's Fantasy Drifting. As the main book of the publishing house this year, the preparation of the early publicity and sales were too important. This book was different from the biography of sect leader Qiao last year. Last year, there wasn't enough time to promote it because there wasn't enough time. Since there was a few months of buffer time this year, Zheng Yujie naturally wouldn't let it go. For this book, she led the team to various major cities, online and offline sales and distribution. She was prepared to invest a lot, and at the same time, with the help of director Li An's new film, she wanted to fight a beautiful publicity battle. Zheng Yujie was very ambitious. If it wasn't for the copyright issues, she wanted to convert it into traditional Chinese characters and sell it to Hong Kong or even Taiwan. The second thing was about Wan Hetiani. Last month, the unexpectedly micro-movie released, set a record of 10 million views in the first week. After that, the growth of the views didn't slow down at all. Unexpectedly, became the #1 trending topic on Qiandu. Classic lines in the micro-movie, such as "I have no regrets in my life. Thinking of that afternoon when I ran under the sunset, that was my lost youth," became popular online slogans on Weibo and other social networks. It was said that many of the micro-movie awards had listed this movie as the focus of their attention. Baiku, Cheonjuan, and the others who starred at the same time also received the attention and discussion of netizens. With the attention, some online variety shows were ready to take action. They sent letters to the company, wanting to invite them as guests. Of course, Wan Hetiani didn't have the energy to participate in these small shows at this time. Taking advantage of the enthusiasm of the audience, Wan Hetiani was intensely preparing to release the Unexpectedly miniseries. It should be said that the Unexpectedly micro-movie was only the first shot to increase Wanha's popularity, but the miniseries was the real highlight for Wan Hetiani. This was because the miniseries was more in line with Wanha's position as a new media film company. It was also the key to whether Wanha could achieve profits. This project was very important, so all the shareholders, including Poplar Fruit, received the notice of the meeting. However, Poplar Fruit wasn't interested in the company's operations at all. He would rather spend his time in the mountains and rivers than fly to Beijing for a meeting. Even though Zheng Yujie complained to Poplar Fruit a few times in private, in the end, Zheng Yujie had no choice but to give him carte blanche. Zheng Yujie wasn't as unconcerned about Poplar Fruit and her career as Poplar Fruit. She went to almost every meeting and put a lot of energy into preparing for the new movie. Unlike the previous micro-movies, Wanha didn't need to cry for sponsors this time. Large amounts of sponsorship came to him. After tasting the benefits, Cinda Translation wanted to increase their advertising investment, but in the end, they couldn't win over the two new big clients, EasyNet Games and Zhongxiang Milk Tea. Because of this, Poplar Fruit even called Yao Dahua to comfort him. Of course, Cinda Translation wasn't affected too much. After all, traditional media advertising was more suitable for their target. These two new clients were really rich. They planned to invest 200,000 and 400,000 for one episode of the miniseries. They also promised to invest more in the next episode depending on the results. This time, Wanha really took off from the airport's runway to success. Chapter 532. If it was just work, it wouldn't make Zheng Yujie feel so burdened. In the past few days, when Zheng Yujie had just finished her work and was about to take a break, her mother, Deng Baoyan, gave her trouble again. This time, the content was very dramatic. Yes, it was a blind date again. Is he really not a son of an aristocratic family? Zheng Yujie asked suspiciously. No, I promise. Deng Baoyan said with a smile. Just go and meet him. If he's not suitable, I'll find another one for you. You're either in the publishing house or in the dormitory all day long. You haven't seen many men, and people are beginning to suspect your sexual orientation. Mom. Zheng Yujie didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How can you talk about your daughter like that? In the end, Zheng Yujie couldn't persuade her mother. Deng Baoyan knew that Zheng Yujie was amenable to coaxing but not coercion, so she agreed to go. It was just a blind date. It wouldn't cost her anything. However, Zheng Yujie wasn't a person who would give in easily. On the day of the blind date, she deliberately worked overtime at the publishing house and arrived at the French restaurant an hour late. Mr. Gua, I'm sorry. I was too busy with work and came late. Please don't mind. Zheng Yujie, who was still dressed as a professional manager, smiled and didn't look embarrassed at all. Unexpectedly, Mr. Gua smiled and said, It's okay. It's normal to be busy with work. Auntie told me that you're the chief editor of the publishing house, so you have to take care of everything. Thank you for your hard work. Dressed in a suit, he pulled out a chair for Zheng Yujie in a gentlemanly manner. Mr. Guo looked older than Zheng Yujie. He was in his early 30s and had a lot of hair. But there was a kind of magnanimity in his gestures. This kind of magnanimity wasn't like Poplar Fruit's magnanimity that came naturally from the accumulation of knowledge, but it was the arrogance of a superior person. But thinking about it, if he wasn't a son of an aristocratic family, Deng Baoyan would only pay attention to those young men who were in high positions at a young age. I heard that Mr. Gua is the director of the General Administration of Sports. Which department are you from? Zheng Yujie glanced at him after she sat down. Let's not talk about this for now. Mr. Gua smiled. He raised his hand and snapped his fingers. Let's order first. You must be hungry, right? Zheng Yujie was slightly taken aback. She didn't expect that during a blind date, there would actually be someone who didn't want to reveal his advantages and instead change the topic to order food. This kind of person either didn't really care and simply wanted to chat and go through the motions, or was pretending. Interesting. Zheng Yujie raised her phoenix eyes and changed into a more comfortable position. She was prepared to watch the performance. Indeed, Mr. Guo was pretending. You're still acting when you're ordering. When the waiter saw that he was Chinese, he kindly spoke in Chinese, but Mr. Guo actually spoke French. Quel_est_lu_plat_du_jour. What's today's specialty? Mr. Guo asked. The waiter was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, Te_de_vo_saucy_grabiche veal with mayonnaise, Monsieur sir. The waiter kindly pointed to the Chinese and French menu for Mr. Guo to see. Vase_prendre_on. Okay, I want one. Mr. Guo made a grammatical mistake here. Mr. Guo nodded and said. He then turned to ask Zheng Yujie. Yujie, do you want one too? Zheng Yujie was disgusted by him calling her so intimately. She frowned and asked, What do you want? Obviously, Mr. Guo didn't know the name of the specialty dish that the waiter had just mentioned. He looked down at the menu and read out the Chinese name of the dish that the waiter had pointed out. No, I want a serving of onion soup as the starter, a half-cooked steak with blood, and a green vegetable platter salad. Zhang Yujie looked at the menu and ordered quickly. What kind of dessert and drink would you like? The waiter asked in Chinese. I don't need dessert, just a glass of water. Zhang Yujie waved her hand and smiled. I've ordered. You can ask him what else he wants. Monsieur. Et_come_boyson. Duvin. Sir. What kind of drink would you like, some wine? The waiter asked again in French. Mr. Guo's eyes flashed with a hint of confusion. He didn't quite understand, so he had to follow the routine that he had set up earlier and asked stiffly in French. I want to order wine now. What kind of wine do you have? This sentence was a little long, and Mr. Guo was nervous and made a lot of mistakes. Notre_car_de_vin_propose. The waiter thought it was funny, but he didn't dare to show it. He could only introduce, Kir gin room. Kir gin rum. I want a bottle of Lafite. Mr. Guo listened for a while, and realized that he didn't know what the waiter was talking about. He simply pointed at the wine that he was most familiar with on the menu and said, of course, he was referring to Lafite, which was only a medium-sized wine that cost about 800 yuan a bottle. Zhang Yujie was watching from the side and found it funny. Although she didn't understand French, she could tell from Mr. Guo's expression and his clumsy speech that the man in front of her was pretending, and he wasn't pretending at all. Sometimes, if you didn't have a certain level of ability, you could really embarrass yourself by pretending. He doesn't know French, but he's still pretending to be a cultured person. Zhang Yujie curled her lips and despised him in her heart. She suddenly thought of Poplar Fruit's shadow. If this guy was here, he definitely wouldn't bother to order in French, right? Zhang Yujie's lips curled up slightly, and her heart was blooming with joy. She knew Poplar Fruit's personality. Although Poplar Fruit often mentioned that he knew 13 languages in the micro-movie, unexpectedly, that was only because the plot required it. Poplar Fruit was very low-key in his daily life. Poplar Fruit could order in French very fluently, and his French was even better than many French people with accents. However, he didn't like to pretend. They were clearly in his own country, and the waiter was obviously Chinese. Was there a need to say a few words in French to show that he was different? From the looks of it, the difference in ability and self-restraint between the two of them was obvious. Thinking of Yang Guo, this big bad guy, Zhang Yujie unconsciously rested her chin on her hand and fell into deep thought. The lights in the restaurant were a little dim. Under the flickering candlelight and the accompaniment of the melodious piano, Zhang Yujie's eyes were a little blurred. However, her empty eyes were looking in the wrong direction. After ordering with difficulty, Mr. Guo turned his head, thinking that Zhang Yujie was looking at him. He was delighted, and a proud smile appeared on his face. Although Zhang Yujie's clothes were a little gender-neutral, in terms of appearance, she could definitely be called a national beauty. To be able to make a great beauty worship, and obsessed to look at him, Mr. Guo felt that his strategy was too successful. Of course, his method had been successful in the past. However, Mr. Guo didn't know that Zhang Yujie had already seen through his true colors. Chapter 533. After ordering, Zhang Yujie retracted her hands from her cheeks and resumed her ladylike posture. Although she was smiling, her eyes were getting colder and colder. However, because of the reflection of the candlelight, Mr. Guo didn't notice it. I don't drink. Zhang Yujie stopped the waiter who had brought Lafite over and said with a smile, just plain water is fine. Zhang Yujie didn't drink. She just didn't like to drink in front of strangers. Even if it was red wine, it would be boring. However, Mr. Guo didn't seem to notice the determination in Zhang Yujie's tone. He smiled and tried to persuade her. Drinking red wine in moderation is good for the body, especially for young girls like you. When you're tired from work, a glass of red wine can help nourish your face and slow down the aging of your cells. Lafite is the most famous red wine brand in France. It's also a high-end red wine. It's hard to buy authentic red wine outside. Waiter, can you give her a glass? Mr. Guo's voice was very gentle and magnetic. However, In Zheng Yujia's ears, it was a different matter. Zheng Yujia frowned. She suddenly smiled charmingly and said, "Yeah, Lafite is a high-end wine. I couldn't afford to drink it before. However, Mr. Gua, I haven't been feeling well recently, and I'm allergic to alcohol. So I'll pass today." The first part was sarcasm, and the second part was blatant lying. Zheng Yujia was a little unhappy with Mr. Gua's persuasion. Not to mention that he used Lafite to flaunt his status. Although Mr. Gua said that he wanted to persuade and ask, his tone was a little tough, as if he couldn't refuse. Zheng Yujia was disgusted by this kind of self-righteous man. She snorted in disdain. "Who are you? How dare you meddle in my business?" Maybe Zheng Yujia pretended too well, but Mr. Gua didn't hear the disgust in Zheng Yujia's voice. He smiled and didn't force it. After the waiter left, he smiled and said, "Yujia, you still call me Mr. Gua? It's too distant. I'm a few years older than you. How about you call me Brother Gua?" "Brother Gua? National anthem?" Zheng Yujia grumbled in her heart. She smiled and said, "Just call me Mr. Gua. I've only known you for less than 10 minutes. By the way, Mr. Gua, if it's possible, please don't call me by my name. It sounds like we're very familiar with each other. It's too awkward." If it had been the Zheng Yujia of the past, she wouldn't have been nice to him after sitting down. Now, because of her relationship with Poplar Fruit, she had become a lot more amiable, but it didn't mean that her fiery temper had changed. Although she was still smiling, as if the two of them were joking, her tone was not polite at all. Mr. Gua's face froze. His smile gradually disappeared, and there was even a flash of anger on his face. However, he took a deep breath and recovered. As if nothing had happened, Mr. Gua smiled gently and said, "All right then, I'll call you Miss Xing too." Perhaps in his opinion, this was the embodiment of a man's self-restraint, but Zheng Yujia didn't care. Mr. Gua raised his wine glass and took a sip, then smiled and said, "Before I came, I saw the photo and thought that Miss Xing was a great beauty. Now that I see you in person, I realize that you're even prettier than the photos. You're even more beautiful than the big stars on TV. Hee, how can I compare to those big stars?" Zheng Yujia smiled. She felt a little uncomfortable in her heart. How did her photo end up in the hands of a stranger? Wasn't his mother a little too unreliable? What if he took her photo to do something dirty? The French restaurant served the dishes very quickly, and it didn't take long for the food to be served. Zheng Yujia originally felt bored chatting with him, so she could use the food to cover up her impatience. Thus, Zheng Yujia was only left with "oh," "n," "hee," and other tone responses. After listening to Mr. Gua for a long time, Zheng Yujia finally understood. This Mr. Gua was the son of a government official. His father was the deputy mayor of a provincial city outside. After he graduated from Beijing, he stayed in Beijing to work in a ministry, and was now an official. Of course, this official position was probably due to his father's connections. He was only a small deputy director of the General Administration of Sports, and a divisional leader was still a noob outside. If thrown into the vast ocean of Beijing, he wouldn't even make a splash. Zheng Yujia didn't think that there was anything wrong with him relying on connections to become an official. After all, she had been influenced by these things since she was young, so she didn't dislike it. However, did this Mr. Gua take the wrong medicine? Why did he keep showing off his family background in front of her? Finally understanding, Zheng Yujia didn't know whether to laugh or cry in her heart. It turned out that this Mr. Gua was the same as Zheng Yujia. He didn't even investigate the other party's background before he came for the blind date. In fact, it was like this. Zheng Yujia's mother, Deng Baoyan, had a new colleague in the unit 2 years ago. This colleague was very nice and was the same age as Deng Baoyan. The two women became good friends in a short period of time. Not only did they have lunch together at noon, but they also liked to talk about dressing up. Unfortunately, in less than 2 months, this new colleague was transferred to the investigation team to do basic research with the officials. The time was too short. It was so short that she and Deng Baoyan had just become best friends when they separated. It was so short that she didn't even know Deng Baoyan's family background clearly. 2 years later, this colleague finished her work in the investigation team and was transferred back again. Deng Baoyan and her played together again. Although they hadn't seen each other in the past few years, they would occasionally contact each other on the phone, so their relationship was still there. Hearing Deng Baoyan say that she had a headache about her daughter, this colleague had a flash of inspiration and wanted to introduce this Mr. Guo to Zheng Yujie. This enthusiastic matchmaker had good intentions. She had met Mr. Guo's father when she was doing research, and she also knew that Mr. Guo was still single in his 30s. She had met Zheng Yujie 2 years ago, and she was a very beautiful girl. She thought that the two of them would be quite compatible. She heard that the other party was the son of a deputy mayor. Although the deputy mayor wasn't really considered to be from an aristocratic family in Deng Baoyan's eyes, and he was also a little old, Deng Baoyan thought that Zheng Yujie was still in a quagmire, and was so resistant to those young masters in Beijing. Why not let the two of them meet? With a buffer, she could introduce better people to her in the future. Poor Mr. Guo. Until now, he still didn't know that he had become Deng Baoyan's pawn, and was still foolishly thinking that he had the upper hand. Mr. Guo happily mentioned his family background again and again, pretending not to care, but he didn't notice that Zheng Yujie was already very impatient. Chapter 534. Mr. Guo enjoyed this feeling very much. He was talking non-stop, and the beautiful woman in front of him, who looked even more charming under the candlelight, was listening obediently. This gave him a great sense of vanity. So what if she was beautiful? Wasn't she still shocked by him? It was very similar to the feeling he had when he was all-powerful in the general administration of sports. Although his official position was not high, he was still a deputy director in charge of sports project management. Those sports stars looked bright and beautiful in front of the camera, but when he went to inspect them, they still had to be obedient. Zheng Yujie was already very impatient. She frequently picked up the cup to drink water, not because she was really thirsty, but because she was a little irritated and wanted to suppress the urge to beat someone up. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have come. Originally, she just wanted to deal with it, but she didn't expect to meet a chatterbox. As a man, what was the point of talking nonstop? This guy seemed to treat her as his subordinate, and the way he spoke was as annoying as those annoying leaders. As for the content of his words, well, Zheng Yujie didn't listen at all, because it was equally empty and boring. Buzz buzz. The phone on the table suddenly vibrated. Zheng Yujie's spirit was lifted, as if a drowning person had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. She picked up the phone and glanced at it. What's wrong? Mr. Guo moved his head forward and asked in a friendly manner. Zheng Yujie smiled charmingly, stood up and said, "My assistant is calling, I'll go pick it up." This glance shocked Mr. Guo, and when he came back to his senses, Zheng Yujie had already taken the phone to a place near the window to pick it up. He didn't know whether it was intentional or not, but Zheng Yujie walked behind the potted plant, and her graceful body hid behind the branches and vines, blocking Mr. Guo's fiery gaze. In fact, the assistant's call was just a regular call according to her previous arrangement. Zheng Yujie used to despise this kind of cliché plot, but now she couldn't care less. After a while, Zheng Yujie came back, looking anxious. She picked up the bag on the chair, smiled apologetically, and said, "I'm sorry, there's an emergency at the publishing house. I need to go back to deal with it." Mr. Guo's expression was a little strange. He was used to being a leader. He was the only one who left halfway. When had he ever been left behind? He wanted to get angry, but he didn't want to lose his composure in front of a beauty. Just as Zheng Yujie stood up, someone grabbed her arm. Zheng Yujie frowned and looked up. Mr. Guo was standing beside Zheng Yujie. His expression changed, but Zheng Yujie still noticed it. She should have been angry, but Zheng Yujie pretended to be slightly surprised. The imperceptible atmosphere around them began to change subtly, but Zheng Yujie's expression became normal. If her younger brother, Zheng Taimin, was by her side, he would definitely run away in fear. Because this was a sign that Zheng Yujie was about to flip out. Is work that important? What's the point of doing this job if you don't even have time to eat? Mr. Guo said softly. He let go of Zheng Yujie's arm, but put his hands together and pressed on Zheng Yujie's shoulder intimately. Zheng Yujie frowned slightly. She sat down again, and quietly twisted her body to move away from Mr. Guo's hands. Zheng Yujia's dislike for Mr. Guo skyrocketed when he touched her the first time they met. Mr. Guo smiled with satisfaction. He returned to his seat and sat down. Then he began to chatter. Let me make it clear that I'm not targeting you. I'm just expressing my opinion. For a woman, health and family are more important. Don't put too much emphasis on your career. Otherwise, what's the point of having a man? Mr. Guo even laughed, thinking that it was very humorous. Zheng Yujia chuckled. Her eyes were cold as she asked, So, Mr. Guo thinks that women don't need their own careers? Of course, that's not the case. In today's society, women's status is getting higher and higher. Our country advocates equality between men and women. Mr. Guo laughed. It's just that in a family, if there's a man who can earn money, he can hold up the sky. Then women don't have to work so hard for that little bit of money, don't you think so? Is money the only goal in life? Zheng Yujia's eyebrows were about to rise. Her voice became steadier as she asked. Of course not, of course not. Mr. Guo laughed. You've completely misunderstood me. Of course, money is not the only goal in life. It's just that in a family, you have to be clear about your priorities. If the man's career is more important, then the woman should sacrifice a little. Mr. Guo continued, for example, if you have the chance to marry into our Guo family in the future. It's just an example. There's a chance? Hearing him say such high-sounding words, Zheng Yujia wanted to vomit. If you marry into a big family like our Guo family, you definitely won't lack money or anything. And your man is fighting for his career. Then, as a woman, you have to think for your man, just like my mother and my aunt. Mr. Guo said seriously. They've all given up their careers to be housewives to take care of their families. Is it good to be a man's vassal? Zheng Yujia asked. How is it not good? Mr. Guo said unhappily. They're living a happy life. If they want to travel, they can do it. If they want to go to the spa or beauty salon, they can go to those banquets. They're dignified in front of others and comfortable behind others. They only care about spending money. Isn't that what you want? If it's you and the woman earns enough money outside, you stay at home and only care about spending money, would you be happy? Zheng Yujia sneered and asked. Why are you so insensible? Mr. Guo was getting more and more dissatisfied. He put on the attitude of a leader and scolded. Women should stay at home to be filial to their parents and take care of their children. All you want is to show your face in public. Which big family would want such a disobedient daughter-in-law? Let me tell you, your attitude is not right. Mr. Guo raised a finger and pointed at Zheng Yujia. With a serious expression, he said, If you want to marry into our family, you have to change your personality. Make a big change. Before he could finish, Zheng Yujia couldn't take it anymore. With a bang, she slammed the table and stood up. She picked up the glass of water in front of her and waved it neatly. Then, without even looking, she turned her head and walked out. Mr. Guo, who was drenched in water, was left sitting in his seat in a daze. There were many weirdos in the world. Zheng Yujia didn't expect to meet such a self-righteous weirdo at a blind date. Now that she thought about it, poplar fruit was still the best. Chapter 535. That's how it is. Don't you think he's despicable? Zheng Yujia pouted as she spoke into the phone. There weren't many people that could make Zheng Yujia act like a spoiled child, and poplar fruit was the only one. However, poplar fruit did not buy it and smiled. All right, you've already poured water on his face, so what else do you want? Zheng Yujia raised her voice as she pouted. Hey, whose side are you on? Do you know? Watering him is already letting him off easy. If it was when I was young, I would have let him know why peach blossoms are so red. Haha, you're talking as if you're old when you were young. Poplar fruit smiled. Chatting with Zheng Yujia, poplar fruit felt more relaxed and couldn't help raising the corner of his lips. I'm old. Zheng Yujia laid on the bed as she gestured with her left hand towards the incandescent lamp as if she was trying to grab onto something, but it slipped through her fingers. She sighed and said with a little self-pity, I'm being urged to get married by my family every day, and the ruthlessness of time has formed a cocoon in my ears. Poplar fruit smiled. You're so literary, and you're a poet now? Then again, Poplar Fruit did not continue to bully her after teasing her. Instead, he eased up and said in a gentle voice, "Look at you, you're getting more and more abnormal recently. No matter how great the pressure at work is, you still have to adjust yourself properly. Furthermore, don't work overtime every day. Work can't be done overnight, and how can you ruin your body?" When Poplar Fruit chatted with women that he was familiar with, his tone would be gentle. It wasn't because of any charm, but because of Poplar Fruit's character. Since young, his mother was stronger than his father, which also determined Poplar Fruit's respect and concern for women. So subconsciously, his voice was gentle and magnetic when he chatted with Zhang Yujie. "I'm slowly recovering." Zhang Yujie's breathing quickened. She smiled sweetly and said, "Now there are many things that can be handed over to the subordinates. I don't need to follow them anymore. So I'm starting to relax a little." "That's great," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Don't think about that man anymore. Isn't it just a failed blind date? Why do you care so much?" "I don't care about him," Zhang Yujie exclaimed, "Aya," and said in dissatisfaction, "He's just a passerby. Who cares about him? Besides, who said I was on a blind date? I was just trying to appease my mother, okay? I just didn't expect to meet such a strange man. His idea is really strange. We haven't confirmed the relationship, and it's only the first time we've met. He wants you to quit your job and be his full-time wife. This man is too arrogant." Poplar Fruit shook his head. He felt that the word arrogant was a bit of a stretch. Actually, what he said is not wrong. Many of the big families in the capital are in the same situation as what he said. Zhang Yujie hesitated for a moment and said, "It's very difficult for a woman to achieve anything in politics. In the big families, they are reduced to accessories. This is normal. Before he came, he didn't inquire about my background. It's not hard to understand what he said." "Why do you say that?" Poplar Fruit frowned. He changed into a stern voice for the first time. He said fiercely, "What era is it now? Do you still need to give up everything to help a man? Men and women are equal. Why can men freely do their own things, but you women can't have your own dreams and career? If that's the case, then what's the meaning of your life?" Poplar Fruit's tone revealed deep disappointment. He said, "Without dreams, you can only become someone else's puppet." Zhang Yujie was silent for a moment. Then, she suddenly burst out laughing. "What are you laughing at?" Poplar Fruit said with dissatisfaction. "I'm talking to you about serious matters." "I'm laughing at your stupidity." Zhang Yujie was not afraid at all. She laughed and scolded. "You're so stupid. Can't you tell that I'm just stating a fact? Can't you tell that I'm also very disgusted? You even threw a tantrum at me." Poplar Fruit awkwardly scratched his head. He held it in for a while before saying, "I'm thinking about which rich young master you will marry in the future. After marriage, you will either be foolishly at home taking care of the children, or talking about perfume and cosmetics with a bunch of rich women. You won't have a job, you won't have your own career, and you won't have the freedom you said you wanted. Just thinking about it makes me angry." Poplar Fruit was very honest. What he said was his true feelings. It's just that he himself didn't understand the real reason why he was angry. "How can I marry someone else?" Zhang Yujie was silent. After a long time, she said faintly, "If it weren't for my mother forcing me to go on blind dates, I wouldn't be willing to meet some rich young master." Poplar Fruit's ears automatically filtered someone else into some other rich young master. He heard the hidden bitterness in Zhang Yujie's words, but he didn't hear who Zhang Yujie was expressing her feelings for. After hearing Zhang Yujie's words, Poplar Fruit was in a good mood and laughed. "Who can force you to do something you don't like?" "My mother." Zhang Yujie exhaled and said, "I'm so angry because of her. Not only did Deng Baoyan pester her from time to time and force her to go on blind dates, but after meeting Mr. Guo today, Zhang Yujie complained to her, and Deng Baoyan even laughed at her misfortune. After meeting someone bad, Zhang Yujie wouldn't stubbornly refuse to listen to her advice anymore, right? Deng Baoyan felt that this was a brilliant move, and it completely met her expectations. Poplar Fruit thought of the unreasonable rich lady he met at the hotel room entrance that day. He shook his head and said with a smile, "No matter what other people say, you have to have your own persistence." For some reason, Poplar Fruit thought of the scene of Lu Yunran putting on a wedding dress and marrying that clumsy fatty. He also thought of the scene of himself in the heavy rain waiting for Fong Beibei's forgiveness. His heart was filled with many emotions. After sorting out his thoughts, Poplar Fruit said slowly, "After all, marriage is a major event in one's life, just like one's dreams and career. Don't be influenced by other people's thoughts. You should bravely pursue your own love. Everyone says that romance novels are lies, but if we let go of love and let it disappear, how much regret will we have in this life?" Poplar Fruit could say this to anyone, but he should never say it to Zheng Yujia. After saying it, Poplar Fruit realized it himself. Bravely pursue your own love. He smiled bitterly in silence. Zheng Yujia had already confessed her feelings for him. Wasn't he encouraging her to continue pursuing him by saying this? But there was already someone in his heart. Poplar Fruit didn't want to see Fong Beibei leave so sadly and resolutely like Lu Yunran. Poplar Fruit's lips moved, but he didn't say anything regretful. Actually, he wasn't wrong. From a friend's point of view, Poplar Fruit really hoped that Zheng Yujia could find her own love, and not let her free and easy character be obliterated by a political marriage in a big family. Zheng Yujia also fell silent. Her EQ was much higher than Poplar Fruit's, so she naturally understood Poplar Fruit's intentions. She also understood that even though Poplar Fruit said this, the girl he loved in his heart wasn't her. But was this important? Zheng Yujia bit her lower lip, her eyes showing determination. However, the words that came out of her mouth were very teasing, which swept away the ambiguous and awkward atmosphere. "Pfft, I'm just complaining to you. Do I need you to analyze my views on love? Are you addicted to being a teacher?" Chapter 536. However, the words that came out of her mouth were very teasing, which swept away the ambiguous and awkward atmosphere. "Pfft, I'm just complaining to you. Do I need you to analyze the concept of love for me? Are you addicted to being a teacher?" Poplar Fruit stared blankly, shook his head, and didn't go into that dead end again. He laughed heartily. "Only a teacher can analyze it for you? This is the advice of your best friend. Tisk, it's up to you whether you want to listen or not." "Come on. What advice? You say it as if you have a lot of experience. Who doesn't know that you're an old virgin, man who has been in a relationship for 4 to 5 years. Zheng Yujia's face didn't blush, and her heart didn't skip a beat when she said those words. Poplar Fruit didn't show any weakness, and he also sharply retorted, "How good are you? You've lived for more than 20 years, and you haven't been in a relationship, right? Even kissing is so unfamiliar." Yongwu didn't forget the scene when Zheng Yujia forcefully kissed him and only knew how to kiss his lips. However, after saying those words, Poplar Fruit regretted it a little. He really touched the pot that didn't boil. Every time he thought about that experience, his face would turn red, and his heart would beat faster. Saying those words, didn't he pull the atmosphere back into the ambiguous atmosphere? "Who said I haven't had a boyfriend?" Zheng Yujia said unconvinced. "I had a boyfriend when I was in elementary school, junior high school, and even when I was studying abroad, okay? The boys who pursued me could form a reinforced company. Do you think no one wants me?" It's just. Zheng Yujia hesitated for a moment, gritted her teeth, and straightened her neck. "It's just that I'm very conservative, and didn't let those bastards succeed." Poplar Fruit laughed, and Zheng Yujia on the other side of the phone was a little unhappy. Zheng Yujia sat up from the bed, turned on the phone and shouted angrily, "Hey, what are you laughing at? You're still laughing. Laughing that I'm going to beat you up." Zheng Yujia picked up the soft down pillow and slammed it fiercely, as if the phone was the despicable Poplar Fruit. She completely ignored the fact that her silk nightgown had been torn open due to her actions, revealing a large area of her proud white chest. "Haha, okay, I won't laugh." Poplar Fruit finally held back his laughter and said, "I didn't mean to laugh at you, but being conservative is a good thing. You can't let those brats take advantage of you. Leave everything good for your true love." "Yeah." Zheng Yujia crossed her legs and lay on the feather pillow. Unexpectedly, she didn't say anything. She just murmured, as if she agreed with him and was acting like a spoiled child. Do you have any plans to come to Beijing after the conference? Zheng Yujie asked cautiously. Come to Beijing. Poplar Fruit asked doubtfully. Is there anything important that I need to go there? Zheng Yujie was silent for a while, and then said in a low voice, No, I'm just asking. She changed into a relaxed tone and said, Why? Do you only want to come over if there is something important? You don't even want to see your friends? That's not what I mean. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, Recently, my schedule has been very tight. After school starts next month, I guess I have to fly to France. You know, I have to help Ardal do a few shows. Before that, after the conference, I have to go to Guishan province and send the 4 members of the Xiong family back. Poplar Fruit briefly introduced the situation of Xiong Jiwu's family to Zheng Yujie, and then said, The last time I went there, I saw their mountain village. It was very remote, and they had to travel a long way. Especially the children who stayed behind. They are so pitiful. Going to school is a big problem. After the old teacher passed away this year, they will probably be free again. I want to see if I can find a better solution. Zheng Yujie frowned and said, The country is helpless. What are you worried about? Of course, I know you have a good heart, but this problem is not something that you can solve alone. Why do you say that? Poplar Fruit said unhappily. We can't say that the country is helpless. We can't just ignore it. Someone has to stand up and do something for them. Otherwise, it will be a vicious cycle from generation to generation. The gap between urban and rural areas and the gap between education resources will become bigger and bigger. Will they still have hope to survive? Don't yell at me, Zheng Yujie said discontentedly. I'm just telling you about the current situation. You have money and can help 1 or 2 people to go to the city to study, but there are so many poor children in the world. Can you take care of them all? Poplar Fruit knew that she was doing it for his own good, but there were some things that Poplar Fruit still insisted on. I know I can't take care of them all, but I want to find a solution for them. I will do my best to help as much as I can. Maybe 10, maybe dozens, but no matter how many, I will have a clear conscience if I do it. Poplar Fruit didn't want to explain too much, nor did he want to use the story of the little boy who saved the stranded fish on the beach to show that others didn't care, but those children did. He only wanted to have a clear conscience. I see. Zheng Yujie was stunned for a long time. She bit her lower lip with her pearly white teeth and said, Poplar Fruit, you are such a good person. She added silently in her heart, I love such a good person. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, Does this count as giving me the good person card again? He tried to change the topic to improve the atmosphere between the two of them. Zheng Yujie didn't actually treat their previous disagreement as a quarrel. Everything she said was for Poplar Fruit's good, including what she said next. Do you need me to help you with anything? Maybe we can try to get volunteers to do volunteer teaching. What do you think? It's useless. Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, I've asked some university principals in Chongqing. They are close to the water, but they are not willing to help. It's mainly because Guishan province is barren. The students are unwilling to go, and the school can't guarantee their safety. Then do you have any ideas? Zheng Yujie asked curiously. I do have one. After a few days, I've come up with a new solution, but the conditions don't seem to allow it. We lack some necessary equipment. Poplar Fruit briefly described his idea. Can't we just buy a computer? Zheng Yujie asked curiously. Computers aren't expensive now. You can buy one for 3,000 to 4,000. It's not just a small matter for a few people. If it works, it will benefit all the children in the mountainous areas. We have to be as frugal as possible. Poplar Fruit said, It's best to have equipment like the Little Tyrant learning machine. It can be used as a computer when connected to the display. It's cheap, portable, and doesn't have to be outstanding. It just has to meet the needs of learning. So you have the ambition to save the world. Zheng Yujie giggled. Without waiting for Poplar Fruit to refute, she smiled and said, Okay, I'll stop teasing you. Tomorrow I'll go to Zhongguancun to take a look. There are all kinds of strange electronic equipment there. Maybe there'll be something you need. Chapter 537. Arguing with Zheng Yujie on the phone was a common thing. Poplar Fruit's personality was a bit serious, and Zheng Yujie was also a domineering queen, so there was more or less a conflict. However, the two of them didn't take these arguments to heart. They were good friends and even a bit like more friends than lovers. After arguing, they returned to normal. However, today was different. After putting down the phone, Poplar Fruit fell into deep thought. What puzzled him was not the quarrel between the two of them, but Zheng Yujie's attitude after she asked him if he had time to go to the capital. Although Zheng Yujie hid it very well, Poplar Fruit could still feel her depression when he said that he didn't want to go to Beijing. She wasn't like this before. Poplar Fruit touched his unshaven chin and thought doubtfully. In the past, Zheng Yujie had asked this question many times over the phone, but she didn't have the same emotions as today. Did I miss something? Poplar Fruit frowned and said to himself. With his super memory, he started to search for the answer. This efficiency was not low. After a while, Poplar Fruit found the cause of the matter. Poplar Fruit's mouth curved slightly, and he muttered, "So it's like this, it's almost her birthday." August 19th, which was 10 days later, was Zheng Yujie's lunar birthday. Although Poplar Fruit remembered it before, he didn't think about it before, so he didn't think about it. No wonder you're unhappy. Poplar Fruit smiled and shook his head. Just say it's your birthday. Why hide it? I can't go to Beijing, but I can still send you a gift. Express delivery is so convenient now. Of course, only Poplar Fruit, who lacked EQ, would think this way. He didn't take the initiative, and he blamed the girl for not reminding him. He took out his phone and was about to call to comfort Zheng Yujie's hurt little heart. However, after the screen lit up, Poplar Fruit put the phone away. He revealed a playful smile and thought to himself, hee, it's better not to reveal it in advance. When the gift is sent, it'll be more interesting. I'm the dividing line. In the next few days, Poplar Fruit went to lectures and seminars, and he took the three children to some of the iconic attractions in Zhongqing. Buying a computer and an iPad was the right choice. Because of these two things, when Poplar Fruit wasn't in the guest house, the three children could obediently stay in the room with Zhu Jingjing. Xiong Xiaofeng and Xiong Xiaolin had different interests. Xiong Xiaofeng loved to play. After buying the iPad, he almost always held it in his arms. He played with the apps obsessively. Not only the games, but other apps like Google Maps and Magic Camera also attracted him for a long time. Xiong Xiaolin, on the other hand, liked Poplar Fruit's new computer. Although she would shyly return the computer to Poplar Fruit when he came back, she usually stayed in front of the computer with Kiki in the guest house. Poplar Fruit downloaded the original American cartoon, SpongeBob SquarePants, for the two of them. He hoped that it would help Xiong Xiaolin learn English, practice her oral English, and teach with fun. In the end, as he expected, Kiki and Xiong Xiaolin both liked this optimistic and lively SpongeBob SquarePants. Under Xiong Xiaolin's lead, Kiki also started to talk along with the cartoon. Of course, Xiong Xiaolin's English foundation was poor, and Kiki only knew some simple words. Most of the time, they could not keep up with SpongeBob SquarePants' speaking speed. However, Xiong Xiaolin worked hard to learn. She was a big sister who was older than Kiki. It would be really embarrassing if she was beaten by Kiki. Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei had been in contact. Poplar Fruit found that after he took the initiative, the call between them became longer and longer. There were even situations where the two of them could chat happily for a long time without Kiki. Thinking back to the past, when the two of them were not so close, Kiki would always monopolize the phone with Fong Beibei. Even when Kiki did not know how to speak, she could whisper to Fong Beibei for a long time. Now Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei could talk more and more. Was this a big improvement? No matter how stupid Poplar Fruit was, he could feel that the relationship between the two of them had improved by leaps and bounds. His mind could not stay still, and he wanted to leave his body and fly to Fong Beibei's side. However, Poplar Fruit knew that even if the two of them could meet now, with Fong Beibei's thoughts, she would definitely not allow herself to be with him. Fong Beibei could be said to be a complex of contradictions. Like other My Daughter born in the 1990s, she liked two-dimensional manga, just like how she always called Poplar Fruit uncle. In her heart, there was a lively, naive, and playful My Daughter. However, she was different from those two-dimensional my daughter. She was as traditional as the women in the old society. She was very kind, but also very conservative and stubborn. Previously in the reign, she said that they would be apart for 2 months to let each other calm down. These 2 months were actually just a number in front of other couples. As early as Poplar Fruit had figured out his feelings, the gap between the two of them had gradually disappeared. Just like the content of the conversation between Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei on the phone and the tone of each other. The two of them were infinitely close to being real lovers. Was there any meaning in holding on for 2 more months? But Fong Beibei felt that there was. In her opinion, a promise was as heavy as Mount Tai. Since she had made a promise, she should stick to it. Perhaps this was the difference in thinking between a straight-A student and an ordinary person. In this world, probably only Poplar Fruit, who was also a straight-A student, could endure it. Poplar Fruit was in a good mood now. He did not want to force Fong Beibei. Although his thoughts were like a tide that could not be calmed, he did not want to argue over a day and night of obsession. After having Kiki, he cared more about a lasting love. This love was a matter of a lifetime. What was the harm in waiting a little longer? Speaking of which, Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei's personalities were somewhat different from ordinary people. If you only looked at Fong Beibei's appearance, you would think that she was very witty and strange. But after interacting with her for a long time, you would find that she was kind and conservative inside. She was an out-and-out antique type of beauty. Poplar Fruit was even more interesting. He was obviously a handsome guy, but he was very low-key. He did not care about his appearance and did not pay attention to his appearance. He was obviously very capable and could do a lot of things that would attract people's attention. But he threw himself into an obscure industry that was difficult to become famous. He had attracted a lot of beautiful women around him, but he was still like a big block of wood, and remained single until now. If you were to say that Fong Beibei was conservative, Poplar Fruit was not any better. In his view, if you loved someone, you had to be wholehearted. Ever since Fong Beibei replaced Lu Yunran and entered his heart, no one could shake Fong Beibei's position in his heart. Duan Shiweqing, whom he had known for 5 years, could not. Zheng Yujia, who had taken the initiative to attack, could not either. It seemed that Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei were really a perfect match. This chapter can be considered as an answer to a book friend's question about Fong Beibei not being suitable to be the female lead. Of course, there will be more changes and developments in the future. If you don't read the end, how will you know the ending? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.